Case File B01, News Clipping. Massacre at Cedar Lake, 18 dead, 2 survivors. Suspect, S, remains at large. Local death cult a likely culprit. By Katie Reeves, KGWA staff. Tuesday, October 10, 2023, 2:01 p.m. Portland, Oregon, KGWA 18 people were found dead in a cabin up in North Cedar Lake near Point Hope, Oregon, 3 hours south of Portland, Oregon. All victims were believed to have been killed 3 weeks ago on Sunday, September 24. 2 survivors were taken to the hospital with stab and burn wounds around the same time, police said. These 2 minors were mysteriously dropped off at the local hospital, but only one regained consciousness and pointed the police to the crime scene. Among the dead were 12 men and 7 women between the ages of 22 and 47, according to Fernand Blomkin, PHPD spokesperson. It was not immediately clear how they died. This is an absolutely horrific tragedy that has fallen on all of Point Hope community, something that certainly will weigh heavily on the investigators in this case, Blomkin said at a nighttime news conference last night. Read more. Candlelight vigil held for victims of Marshall school shooting after 17-year-old student's rampage. Read more. Frank Holland trial starts in Gregory robbery and murders. What to know about the case? Authorities are asking for the public's help identifying a white van that arrived at Evergreen Medical Center between 7:02 a.m. and 7:05 a.m. when the survivors were dropped off. The suspect remains at large. Investigators have not determined a motive for the attack. However, they were not ruling out the possibility of multiple suspects. Based on credible witness testimony by one of the survivors, the massacre at Cedar Lake looks like the actions of a local death cult, of which Justin Hodge, the local PHHS football coach, is the leader and the main perpetrator of this heinous crime, Blomkin announced to the surprise of those in attendance. More announcements will be made of his accomplices as we understand more of the case in the coming days. Case File B11, audio recording from the Point Hope anomaly. Captain Raff, they are all dead. I took 25 men and women here, and all of them are dead. Soldiers I trained for months, some I had served with for many years, were all gone. Jesus, I can't forget the way they looked at me, and I couldn't save any of them. I thought we were ready. I thought we were strong enough to fight it. Hell, we have the firepower, but that was not enough. Not down here. Dr. Andrews believed we could neutralize, capture, and contain these rogues in the area and then transport them to a black site somewhere east. He's too optimistic about our luck. I don't even know where Andrews went. Maybe he's dead like the rest. We didn't even get the gear out to capture one creature for transport. It didn't matter. None of it matters. They were waiting for us. As if all of them knew we were fucking coming. They were brutal, efficient, and knew how to make us tick. It knew my wife's name. How? Fuck, I'm bleeding pretty bad. I don't think I have long until they find me. I don't know which one is worse, bleeding to death or being eaten by shadows. I'm going to die here. To Emily and our boys, know that I always think of you too and love you. I didn't want to go this way, but beggars can't be choosers. I tried really hard, Em. I tried really hard to come back home. To the Colonel, stay away from the mountains unless you are sure you can kill these fuckers to high heavens. Get the people out of the area. It is spreading, expanding. You need to watch out for their master. Andrews thought these rogues were controlled by a larger and more powerful rogue. I haven't found which one that is. I guess that's up to you, Colonel. Like I said, it's growing. Fast. I could feel it expanding. Hungry. Find the fucker. Find them soon, or there'll be nothing left for. The audio cuts out. On the handler's notes upon hearing the recording, they left a comment that it sounded as if Captain Raff was violently pulled or yanked away from the tape recorder. Captain Edgar Raff's body was never found. Case B08, a video taken from North Cedar Lake on Halloween, October 31, 2024, 1 year after the theorized Point Hope anomaly began. The video starts in the parking lot in front of Cedar Lake's infamous Hell Rock or the Fairley Cabin. The handler noted the timestamp as 11:23 p.m. There are 3 girls and 3 boys in the video, which is paused. Audio has been corrupted during the recovery process. The handler provides an audio recording to accompany the images. Handler Wyoming, this is Handler Wyoming translating on behalf of the Montrose Institute. The footage was from the first hours of Group 5's descent into the Point Hope anomaly. This recording is for record purposes. Group 5 consisted of 6 offerings. From left to right are Naomi Cyprian, Maya DeWitt, Jackson Huza, Connor Andriola, and Ryan Rosk. Behind the camera is Nicole Brockhoff. All 6 are between the ages of 19 and 22, and all are college students from Rothwell College, a local academic institution in Point Hope, Oregon. Earlier in the night, Cedar Pine Summer Camp was rented out for a private Halloween event for the students at Rothwell College. Our agents concluded that at least 400 students and local youths were in attendance. Group 5 broke away from the event and visited the Fairley property, recently bought by the Duncan estate. A year prior, the Fairley cabin was the site of a demonic ritual that claimed the lives of 18 people. This is the epicenter of the Point Hope anomaly that we at the Institute have been studying for the past several months since dark fall. The locals call it the Hell Rock. The Duncan estate has been renting it out as an Airbnb for several months. A warning to all handlers and agents: do not book a room to conduct on-site research within the anomaly's borders until the site is deemed safe from paranormal entities. No matter how good your disguises or your cover are for the op, the entities around Hell Rock will know who you are. The Duncan estate is not aware of the site's true nature but is willing to declare an open auction on the property, and the Institute is currently bidding to own it. I repeat, do not enter Hell Rock or be near North Cedar Lake. It is forbidden and very dangerous. We lost 4 agents after renting the house for recon, and we have no record of them driving to Oregon. All 4 of our agents are from Los Angeles, and they disappeared from inside their homes. At this point in time, any missions about the anomaly are considered unsanctioned by the Institute unless said otherwise, and we will disavow your involvement if caught. Now, on to the video. Group 5 was drawn to the property due to a popular local folklore about the region. The cult massacre the previous year only drew more interest from the locals into the area and blew up first-hand accounts of paranormal occurrences within the anomaly's borders. Unfortunately, about 60% of the information we can confirm is false. According to Google, local engagement about the folklore of North Cedar Lake peaked at 538% clicks around Rothwell College after the massacre and around 200% in the nearby cities of Salem, Albany, Corvallis, Eugene, Bend, and the Portland metro area within the first 100 days after the massacre. During the recording of this video, the Fairley cabin is considered private property, and Group 5 is trespassing. 6 state officers are on patrol to watch the nearby private event. One is Officer Danny Lowell, who will be important in case file B27, which details the content of his body cam. I believe that most of Group 5 dared Ryan Rosk and Maya DeWitt to enter the cabin and stay inside for 10 minutes. DeWitt was a sophomore transfer student from Portland State University and, I believe, is new to the friend group. I have attached the text conversations between Rosk and DeWitt on case file B07, and their, let's just say, mutual attraction to one another. This dare is meant to keep both of them alone, courtesy of Jackson Hughes's scheme to spur Rosk into asking DeWitt out for a date based on the text messages both boys send each other before the Halloween party. The camera is handed over to Rosk to record the next 10 minutes inside the cabin. While the other 4 waited outside, Rosk and DeWitt entered the cabin without any obstruction by the anomaly, entering the living area and then into bedroom B. The footage cuts out once DeWitt and Rosk sit on the bed, and the footage cuts off. They are interrupted by the others entering the living room and Jackson Huza opening the cellar door. The timestamp on the screen is 11:46 p.m. We do not know what happened to Rosk and DeWitt in the bedroom, but the timestamp on the footage is set 14 minutes after they entered bedroom B. DeWitt had already exited the premises after a falling out, rejecting Rosk's advances. What remains of Group 5 enters the cellar door and into what we now call the choosing room. To any listeners, several footage from the archives that we managed to collect about this region did not show this choosing room, not even the body cams of the police who retrieved the bodies of those who died from the massacre last year. This brings me to my next point: once the choosing room is revealed to anyone, the anomaly is awake. Once that hidden door materializes, the anomaly has chosen you. We do not know how it judges a person worthy of seeing this door, but based on our limited evidence, it appears to be random. Although this is just a theory, but I believe the anomaly chooses the people with deep-seated trauma and unresolved demons. I have asked the Institute to conduct an experiment with death row inmates, but I was denied. The footage continues to show a large antechamber with several painted doors in a semicircular position depicting various nightmarish imagery. In the middle of this room is a circular platform with a podium. On top is a giant hourglass resting on the surface. Each of these doors select the main rogue that will actively hunt you across North Cedar Lake, while the rest remain in their lairs, scattered across the property. The more doors you open, the more rogues are coming after you. Agents, if you open any of these rooms, it is already too late. The footage freezes on Nicole Brockhoff's face as she grabs the handle of the door depicting the 9 circles of hell. Jackson Husa also opens another door out of the frame. And one thing is clear, horror awaits once the door is chosen. There's nothing left for everyone to do but survive until dawn. Somewhere outside of London. 7 days after the Deathcore's birth. Blood, oil, and rain. Those were the first things he smelled when Henry opened his eyes. The cold, muffled rain pattering against the driver's broken side window echoed above him. Wait, why is it up there? He blinked into the gloom and felt the cold droplets of water on his cheeks cascading down the cracks. The chill in the air crept under his skin, nauseating and piercing. A familiar smell wafted into his nostrils, something like burnt rubber and gasoline. And blood. His blood. Henry reached out, grabbed the headrest, and propped himself up from his almost twisted and crumpled position against the passenger seat, his face pressed against the leather dashboard. And was that blood splattered all over it? He could taste something metallic inside his mouth and under his tongue, and he was afraid to swallow it. He had cut his lower lip pretty bad. Dull lights from the nearby streetlight illuminated enough of the chaotic cabin that he could see his charcoal-fitted suit and white shirt, also stained with blood. Jesus Christ, how fucked up do I look? But he was alive. That was all that mattered. His head pounded, felt like a jackhammer going to town at the base of his skull. Dancing lights prickled at the periphery of his vision. He needed a moment to shift his weight. To support himself from the fucking pain that snaked up his spine, radiating from his tailbone. He needed to think. Needed to gasp for fresh air. To breathe. God, he needed to breathe, but his lungs felt like it was on fire. Mixed with the cold winter air, it was like tumbling through sandpaper. He shifted his weight again, struggling to stand and squeeze in such a cramped space, but then his world spun. The car shifted, too, as if it sensed his waking presence. He paused, waiting for something terrible to happen, but the stillness returned. The rain kept on falling. Good, good. He looped his arm around a sturdy headrest close to him and lifted himself higher, steadied himself for a beat against his own weight, but he couldn't keep it up for long, and he fell on his butt again. Spitting out a curse, Henry got up, paused to gather enough strength, and then climbed out of the broken window. He recognized the car's interior as his vision adjusted in the dim light. This was his car. He blinked, pushing the blurry haze. No, he wasn't imagining it. This was his car now lying on its side, and he was in an accident. Am I in a ditch? It looked like it. The rain fell harder, drumming against his car in an angry staccato as if taunting him. Everything felt wrong. Looking around from the top of the car, he found himself stranded on the side of the road he didn't recognize. He could barely hear any sounds of life. No cars passed or lights from distant towns. Only the dark and the rain surrounded him. He regained enough of his strength and senses to climb down the wreck. His feet hit the pavement, legs still unsteady. Panic slowly swelled as his mind swam with questions. How did I get here? What happened? What was I doing? Why is everything so cold? Broken glass lay scattered around the wreck like confetti, and he was careful not to step on it when he realized he was missing a shoe. Every breath he took burned in his lungs as he stumbled away from the car. Cold, cold. Everything is so cold. He shivered uncontrollably. Henry looked around the empty road, saw the tire skid marks on the asphalt, and froze. Oh, no. Did he hit something during the crash, or someone? He didn't see any other wrecked car around, and if he killed someone, he didn't see a body. Or maybe it fell somewhere else? He ambled toward the ditch, peering into the dark just to glimpse a crumpled silhouette of a person. He listened carefully just in case he would hear their gurgled gasps as they fought for their life. Or maybe they were already dead, and what Henry really needed to do was flee. He thought he heard the sirens approaching, but it must be the wind. And nothing. Only silence and the rain. And his shallow breaths. He didn't know if he should be relieved or puke his guts out for imagining that he might have killed someone. Henry staggered back. The mere thought of puking already bubbled all sorts of things up his throat. He could taste the burnt tang of whiskey, vodka, meats, and soda at the back of his tongue. God, was I drinking? His head swam and spun again. I need to lie down. He needed to find his phone. As he sat down cross-legged in the middle of the road, picking up the pieces of his scattered memories about how he ended up here, it took him a second to notice the translucent gemstone floating 10 feet away from him, hovering just above his wrecked car. He held his breath. No, that's impossible. He didn't know how to react at the sight of it, or perhaps he had a bad concussion, and he was starting to see things. That's not good. Fuck running, he might need to get to a hospital soon. Rocks don't float, he thought. Then, he saw it. There was a body inside the car, folded like paper in the back seat. Oh no. No, 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 no. Henry got back up to his feet. Did he have a passenger with him? Whoever was inside was not moving. He tried calling out, but his throat felt like grinding his vocal cords against gravel. He limped back toward the wreck, and gravity grabbed him by the ankles of where he stood. Hat, that can't be. The person, the man, inside the car had his face. He had short black hair, empty blue eyes, a crooked nose, and the same suit he wore from work. He was as tall as him at 6 feet and had the same athletic build. Only this man gazed blankly back at him, blood all over his face and clothes. His bones bent unnaturally backward. Some tore through his muscles and ligaments and pierced through his sleeves. The man was him. And he was dead. The translucent gemstone let out a kaleidoscopic flash, and Henry took a cautious step back. It hummed as it approached him, calm and inviting. Everything's going to be okay. He didn't know why he thought of that, but it made him feel better? Relieved? This was not the end, he thought. With each kaleidoscopic flash, he could see something inside the gemstone, a green expanse with a towering mountain range on the horizon, a quiet cabin in the woods, the glint of a double-sided axe carried in the man's hand, the smile of a bloodied woman, the mountain of bodies on the earth, and the looming form of a towering, twisted tree with javelin-like arms. A scroll unfurled in midair. Then, a strange vision appeared in his mind filled with all sorts of rules, a powerful being he'd worship, a system he'd serve, and something greater. Something divine. Something that would finally bring meaning into his life. It was an invitation. He realized that now. An invitation to a power he had never known existed. All it would take was for him to become a beast from the myths. A monster. And Henry accepted it without question. He blinked, and everything vanished. The gem, the scroll, the wreck, and the road were all gone. He found himself in a strange forest. All the blood on his clothes was gone, exceptionally clean and spotless. Even his wounds disappeared. He could no longer taste something coppery under his tongue. But that darkness here was different. It adhered to his command and wills like a pet, even afraid to approach him with malice, a power promised within his grasp. And it was exhilarating. I summon you, Duke. A familiar voice in the darkness, just beyond the tree line. Soft. Absolute. Fatherly. Henry knew he should follow. He should obey without question. He knew what he was now and what he must become. And he would play his part with conviction. He stepped out into the open grounds before the cabin and smiled at his new family standing before him. I am at your service, my Lord Dungeon. Los Angeles, California. Are you ready to see some fucked up shit? That was the first line of Dylan Griffin's Dead Pacifica, a true crime podcast about strange murders all along the Pacific coast that catapulted Dylan into online superstardom. Sure, he had a few hiccups leading up to the podcast's debut, from almost getting cancelled due to filming a dead body in the Oregon woods to getting into multiple relationships and cryptocurrency dramas with other famous influencers and sycophants. That didn't mean all of his haters went away, but at least the bad press died down significantly, and it never bothered his wallet any longer. The Griff always finds a way to crawl back to the top. Hell yeah, baby. Dylan does stuff. His YouTube channel grew from only 800K followers to almost 3 million in the past 8 months and nearly 12 million across TikTok, Spotify, Facebook, and Instagram. All thanks to Dead Pacifica and its growing listeners and fanbase. It only needs to cover some gnarly murders and several missing cases. The more tragic the backstory, the better. Dylan thought. Ever since the show's debut, he had been earning close to $50,000 a month from ads, views, merchandise, and sponsorships. That was just from the podcast alone and not the other random content and streams he provided for his followers, which averaged around 4 million views. He had found the elusive golden goose, and it was still not done laying golden eggs. Who knew that covering the topic of the Green Hill Massacre would lead to one of the largest massacres in the past 3 decades? And what made it extra juicy was that the second spree of murders only happened 20 miles from where Point Hope was. Dylan already got tons of views from that video covering the Green Hill Massacre, only to be blessed by the breakout news that another massacre occurred. And that they were fucking connected. And voila, Dead Pacifica was born. We need to do something big, Dylan told Redo Kearns, his co-host and a popular Twitch streamer, after taking a big bite out of his burrito. They had just dropped the episode about Anna Furman and her 4 other friends going missing in the same woods where Dylan and Kearns found that park ranger's body. The episode has garnered 500,000 views since it dropped last night. Like what? Kearns asked. I don't know, just something. We're running out of missing cases and may have to repeat old topics. Maybe cover more of the previous victims? Get a part 2, you know? Usually, viewer retention is not that great in that kind of videos, but it's still popular. We should cover our most viewed case. What brings this on? We're doing great. We're not going to run out of cases, Dylan. Did you see the news yesterday? Dylan's brows furrowed. What? Kearns grinned and pulled out his phone, tapping something on the news app. He slid his phone across the table toward Dylan. Another missing case just got reported 2 days ago. A young couple from Seattle hiking the mountains. A nearby cell tower pinged their last known location as McLaren Forest. See? We're not gonna run out of cases. Whatever's happening in those woods is more content for us. We've covered other couples before. So? We will do all that scary shit that ghosts, chupacabra, or even Bigfoot killed them. But we can also provide some realistic content that the boyfriend might have killed his girlfriend because he was abusive or jealous, you know? A guy takes her lady into the woods or the mountains, and 30% of the time, with the intent to murder. See how easy that was? It's like you're not even a true crime podcaster, Dylan. Relax. We're going to be fine. Dylan didn't look convinced. I don't know. Paul got that AI stuff. He put in some algorithm, and for the past 12 episodes, we've been shedding listeners by 1 to 2K each. That's not much. But it adds up eventually. I hear on Reddit we're getting boring. They're already accusing us of exploiting the victims and their families. Fuck the haters. That's why we have you and your dad's lawyer. I don't really want to get cancelled again. It's not fun, Kearns. Yeah. I remember. Not fun. We're not, okay? Do you know how many copycats keep popping up on my algorithm lately about McLaren Forest and North Cedar Lake? They have significantly lower views than us, okay? You don't have to worry about anything, Dylan. We're still popular. We're the OG. Seriously, there's nothing much to say when the cops don't even know what happened to them. You know there's like 2 families trying to sue us. They can't sue shit. My dad already said it's not gonna land, and it'll get thrown out of court. Something about free speech. Kearns smirked. I did warn you not to cover that other girl. She was never near the area. Or that Texan guy and his side piece. But what if they were? But they weren't. The Texan guy and the hooker were found in Salem from a drug overdose inside an Airbnb. Literally 60 miles away from Point Hope. Dylan shrugged. Their car was found in the same woods, though. You don't think that's weird? Anyway, it makes for a good story. That's all that matters. Look, plenty of people have gone missing in the area ever since that Satan-worshipping cult murked themselves. I can't blame that many of our viewers see something weird about that. Kearns nodded. People love the spooky shit. Dylan's eyes widened. An idea formed. Maybe that's what we should give them. Huh? You do know Halloween's like 4 months away? We can go to North Cedar Lake ourselves. Kearns stopped crunching on the nachos. What? I don't know why we haven't done it yet. It's actually brilliant. Dylan said excitedly. Because you got in trouble for filming a dead body? Dylan waved him off. They probably forgot about it. And what should we do there exactly? You know the woods are not really my thing. We've got a good gig going, man. We just sit back and talk about these people, and then we raked in the cash. I don't know. Maybe walk around the woods, find the spots where the last missing people were seen, and get our commentary? I mean, think about it, Kearns. Our boots are on the same ground. Where these people were seen last. What happened to them? What did they see during that day? We can film the woods, the lake, the cabin, everything. It's gonna be cathartic. We get our own footage. We can make it creepy and fucking terrifying. Oh my god, do you know how many views we will get? You said so yourself. People love the spooky shit. Come on. Say it's a good idea. Okay, I do see the value of us going up there and filming original content. And that the novelty of it would bring in a lot of viewers. And, come on. And yes, it's actually a good idea. Kern stifled his smile. Yes. Thank you. I can't believe we haven't thought about this before. Kearns continued, but we'll have to maximize what content we film up there. I think I have several ideas already. Oh? Like what? We can stay up there for 3 days. Film blocks of footage that we'll spread out in a 4-part series, get interviews with the locals, and on the last night, we'll film a live feed of us in the woods. Dylan thumped his chest. Fucking brilliant, bro. And I can already see it. We should get some famous influencers with us, too. Scare them shitless. Let's make our own Blair Witch project. Oh, man, I can already see us cutting a deal with Netflix or some shit. You know how they fucking love their documentary series. So, when do you want to do this? Kearns asked. Dylan paused, and a broad smile crept on his face. At the anniversary. Anniversary to what? The cult's murders. You want to make Dead Pacifica big? Let's film it exactly 1 year after the murders, on the same exact night. Extra creepy. More money. Everyone's happy, eh? Kern scooped up more nachos from his bowl. I hope you're right. And I already know who we should center the episodes about. Who? Mark Castle. The cult's original victim. The forest was silent when the devil came to roost. It brought with it a charming smile to match its handsome face, black pushed-back hair, and a white LL Bean fisherman sweater warm enough to curl by the fire. But its welcoming image was meant to deceive. To become a friend of mine, though we're anything but friends. It was in his name, in his nature. Administrator Elvis, I called him, one of the few of his kind who oversaw dungeons like mine. And now he was here again, probably enjoying the carnage last night. After I invited him inside the cabin, Elvis studied the living room like a strict parent. All but 3 of his guards stayed outside per my request, which the administrator honored much too quickly for my taste. He wasn't scared of me, and without a scenario triggered, I couldn't read his resolve, his emotions, or his will. And Elvis knew that. If I triggered one, they'd know about it immediately, and I had several ideas about how they would react. Most of it probably wouldn't end up well for me. Even if he was scared, he was doing a fine job hiding it. But my dread, well, that they could feel. I saw the hairs at the nape of the guard's neck standing up once they entered the cabin's threshold. They, and everyone outside, looked human, and I wondered if some illusion magic was at play. I've never seen an elf before, I mused. May I sit? Elvis asked politely, gesturing to the couch. I nodded. Please, and help yourself. At the cost of 1 crystal, a plate of chocolate chip cookies, lemon curd, perfectly cut marbled brownies, snickerdoodles, 4 tall glasses of milk, and a steaming pot of citrus herbal tea materialized on the coffee table. Elvis smiled and nodded approvingly but then glanced at the splatter of blood staining the couch with disgust. Sorry about that, I said. Opening up the dungeon tab, I spent another crystal to clean the sofa. I kept everything the same since we needed it for the police to find as evidence later and nail the cult. Elvis sat down on the now pristine couch, and since I did not have a body, I hovered across the coffee table from him. He took a bite out of the chocolate chip cookies, making a show of dunking them into the milk before eating them. I realized he was showing the 3 guards how to eat Earth snacks. He invited them to sit down with him. The guards put down their swords and bows, helping themselves with the sugary snacks and following Elvis's lead. So they're definitely not from Earth. I caught one guard's eyes widened in shock, surprised by how too sugary they were. He didn't want to be seen as rude, so he forcibly swallowed the lump of brownies already inside his mouth, washing it down with a glass of milk, and put down the rest on the end table beside him. He never touched it again. Suddenly, Goliath walked in from the kitchen, and I swore I could hear everyone's but cheeks clenched as his looming presence almost snuffed out the amicable energy in the room. He always had his double-sided axe with him, now resting to the side. For the first time since Elvis got here, he visibly gulped. Maybe that was just a lump of cookies. Above us, Old Growth perched on the roof, watching the rest of the guards standing outside. One aimed an arrow at Oldie, but another archer smacked him across the back of the head and shouted at him not to shoot. Let's cut to the chase, shall we? You mentioned a debut. What's that all about? I asked. Elvis took a big sip of the milk. Your debut to my people. You see, we administrators watch every dungeon we know in existence. As the favorite child of the system, who works hand in hand with our universal god, we get that benefit, unlike the others. The system forbade dungeon cores from sprouting in my world. Who wants dead guardians, engineers, and free labor? Am I right? Consider the administrators as the white blood cells in the human body. We do an important job, but at some point, we seek entertainment. Death cores are notoriously rare, so when one pops up, well, we can't help ourselves but gather and watch. Dungeons are, what, TV shows? More like giant arenas. You know your Roman history. We watch. We bet. We pay. And oh yes, we pay handsomely. Are there cameras around my domain? Are your people watching right now? Oh, we don't do cameras, Dungeon Mark. We see everything just like your eyes can. And discussions between a core and an administrator is always a private affair. Ah. I get it. It's through me. I have many eyes. I'm basically the cameraman. It's a bingo. Wait, is that how you say it? I shook my head. And you're here to offer me a contract deal to what exactly? He took another big gulp of the milk, almost emptying the glass. I spent a quarter of a crystal filling it back up instantly. Oh, thank you, Lord Dungeon. This is very delicious. Well, yes, I am here to offer you a contract on behalf of my guild. A guild, eh? When everyone became aware of your death core, a bidding war occurred immediately. It was barbaric, a display of violence only a death lord such as you would appreciate. Almost 10,000 of my kin died by the last count, and that tally was 2 weeks ago. My guild, the Imran Guild, won the bidding war in the end, but at a very close margin. My superiors thought it wasn't worth the hassle, but then the blood you unleashed last night was something to behold. Earth, and the delvers in it, has a unique charm that is unlike other worlds. Low magic. Helpless victims. Ah, what a fun time. That just brought your value up by 56%. But I've only been a dungeon core for 5 days. Time works differently where I'm from, Dungeon Mark. Then, how much did your guild bid? Elvis smirked. Do you really want to know? Duh, who doesn't? Well, yeah. Now I kinda want to know how much I'm worth, I blurted out. Elvis opened the palm of his hands. If you insist. It's about 80 billion Zumak. Or in this world's currency, about $900 billion. Plus change. Oh, that's a lot of zeros. If you're paying that much, can you tell me how many death cores are there? Elvis's smile didn't falter, and he answered simply, no. Fine. So you're here to convince me to sign a contract with your guild. Why would I do that? All thriving cores in existence have guilds behind them, even the handful left here on Earth. And no, you can't know who they are either. It's their choice to contact you. But to a death core, that should be quite easy. They're probably sizing me up. Elvis chuckled. Oh, you're right about that, too. If you wish to grow and succeed as a death core, you need our resources. For one, we can pay you a royalty fee for the broadcasting rights, like what you do here on Earth. We pay the system the money, and the system converts it to a core's currency, the crystals. For every scenario you complete, we'll give you our death core rate of 10,000 crystals, which is a lot of money for dungeon cores. Remember, a scenario must have at least 3 delvers for it to count per our contract. That's a bit arbitrary. We're basing it on what an adventuring party would be in other worlds. 3 is the minimum to form a party. Earth is no exception. It also serves another purpose. Is that so I can't farm you for coin if I ran a scenario with just one delver? You're smarter than you look, Dungeon Mark. You can still run scenarios for a solo or 2 delvers as the system allows, we just won't pay you the fee. You want more bloodbath? Got it. And a little extra might be included from our viewers as donations. You can use these funds to improve your dungeon and your archetypes. Leveling them up would require both crystals and essence. Death cores can extract the latter very easily. And all it requires are blood and fear. And you'll earn a hefty profit as well. Elvis pursed his lips. This is business. Of course, we'll profit, but that's the one thing you do not have to worry about. Another thing we could do for you as our client is our knowledge of the system. We can advise you to become the better you. I narrowed my gaze. He was laying the sales pitch on me too thick. I don't really appreciate it when someone micromanages me or tells me what to do. I don't appreciate it then when I was alive as a human, and I certainly don't appreciate it now. The other guards shared a concerned look, but Elvis wasn't perturbed. As I have said, my kind cannot interfere with your decisions and whatever you do with your dungeon. The system considers all of this sumac we give you as mere donations, which is allowed. Think of it as a patronage. If you want to smite us now, it is within your right to do so. After all, we are made of flesh and bone. To a core, we are meat. But then the Imran Guild will come after me. As is our right as well. And if I said no and showed you the door? Then my guild will relinquish our bid, putting your core back to auction, and another bidding war will start. Another administrator will come to give you the same sales pitch again. A different tune, but the same lyrics nonetheless. You reject them, and the process starts again, wasting more of your time and costing my world with more bodies and coins. There are thousands of guilds dying to have you as their client, and they are willing to destroy the Imran Guild to have it. You still haven't explained to me why. It can't just be because of money. Not every explanation has to be so complex, Lord Dungeon. Even my world is ruled by money like yours do. You'd be surprised how obsessed the universe is with wealth and coin. We have no ulterior motives here besides profit and making people happy. Your success simply correlates with it. You are lucky that you have a death core, the most coveted viewing experience in the known universe. Elvis paused and smiled mischievously. And more. But I can grow on my own. I've done well so far, and the system rewards me for completing the scenarios with crystals anyway. Oh, but how long will that last? You must complete hidden milestones to get them or find those pesky quests that give out better rewards. What the system provides fluctuates many times. I'll manage. It will take you months and plenty of delvers to go through just to get 10,000 crystals, which you could have gotten from a single delve if you were to work with us. It will take years, maybe a decade, for you to grow and multiply as a dungeon, which also costs a lot of resources. These crystals can buy you skills and ability improvements for your core and expand your dungeon quickly. While we administrators were made aware of you the moment you were born, it is only a matter of time before others in the wide universe find you and are willing to use your core for their nefarious purposes. I turned to the guards. Does the Imran Guild also offer protection services against such threats? Elvis regarded Goliath with amusement. Ah, but you will create more monsters, Dungeon Mark. You have no need for mortal guards. Thanks for the confidence, I said sarcastically. And as an offer of goodwill, the guild is willing to give you 20,000 crystals right here as a signing bonus. Just to sweeten the pot, huh? Just to sweeten the pot, Elvis repeated. Last time you were here, you gave me extra abilities and even upgraded my archetypes. You said the elders gave them to me. Elvis's back straightened, and the other guards felt uncomfortable as well. It is considered uncouth to discuss the elders. They are watching us as we speak. I thought this discussion was private. Not for them. So? Can't they reward me with more upgrades instead of cash? Well, that event was after we won the bidding war, and we were honored to introduce ourselves to you as emissaries. An offense to the system had been committed, and we were allowed to bequeath such gifts to you without cost or consequence. And that door closed. We work with what we have, which is plenty enough. We can certainly still give you extra abilities, but it will cost us. Everything in the system has a price. You saw to that. How much? A city. A city. Oh. Oh. A death core's price was always written in blood. My currency was death and destruction. Wherever I looked and whatever I touched, it would be my currency, always. Yes, it's much easier to grow on your own with plenty of crystals at your disposal. We leave the expansion decisions to you with a little extra helping from our pockets, of course, Elvis said. I sighed. Tempting. Elvis was clearly enjoying the game of selling me his guild. Unfortunately for you, Dungeon Mark, your core exists in a world where no one knows who you are. In other worlds, you'd have delvers lining up every single week. Kings marching towards you with his armies. High-level adventuring parties craving for an ounce of your power. Your people do not enjoy the system's gifts. Levels. Rankings. Arcana. Loot. Yeah. I get it. Earth's boring. I like boring. I looked around my domain. With the town of Point Hope almost 15 miles away, I'm not exactly surrounded by willing delvers, and Earth was not a fantasy land. No paladins, warriors, rogues, clerics, and mages formed parties and delving dungeons in faraway places. I still adhere to the rules of Earth and its beliefs. A majority of the people didn't even believe in magic or monsters. But they are real, just waiting at the periphery like me. I had to entice them to come to me. Sometimes, they stumbled into my domain by accident. It was not a guarantee that I would receive a group of delvers every night like other worlds. There might be times when I couldn't feed for weeks, even months. I dreaded what hunger felt like for a core deprived that long of essence. I barely lasted a day last time. But weeks? Months? Fuck that. What am I thinking? Delves meant death, and it meant I was leading random people to their doom. I would be the one responsible for their demise and the horrors they would face. I felt nothing when I was doing it to Hodge and the cultists, but to people I didn't know? Strangers who were just lost in the woods? Did I have it in me to feed on more of the innocent again? I regarded Elvis. Hand me the contract. A briefcase appeared next to Elvis, and he unlatched it open. He placed a stack of paper at least 20 pages long down on the coffee table. Demon, are you here? I called out. The demon's shadow enveloped the room's far corner, and Elvis looked up. However, the other guards did not and looked around like lost puppies. I realized they couldn't sense the demon. They couldn't actually see me. I noticed a tiny metallic device plugged inside their right ear. And that's how they could hear me. I ignored it for now and turned to the demon. Read the contract front to back and back to front. Read it thoroughly. Read it 3 times. Find anything funny. The demon obliged hungrily. They were in their element, after all. Most of the contract was standard slop, like breaking it would result in some consequences that heavily involved a lot of money, and I shouldn't associate myself with other guilds. Fortunately, I could afford it since converting crystals to Zumak was easy. I admit that I wasn't good at reading nor signing contracts, but fiends were notoriously meticulous at crafting them. It took the demon almost 2 hours to finish reading it 3 times while Elvis and his guards sat patiently on the couch. Then, the demon-possessed Melanie's corpse wrote something on several of the pages, and handed it back to Elvis. The administrator took another half an hour just reading through the changes, almost deliberate at prolonging the demon's pain while they're occupying dead flesh. Elvis nodded and put the paper back down on the coffee table. This will do. At the end of each local solar cycle, 10% of the broadcasting profits will go to Dungeon Mark. And we'll meet again every 5 years for the contract's renewal. What did you do? I asked the demon. I gave you a better deal, my liege. The administrators are going to make a mountain of gold off your back that you deserve at least a slice of the pie. They are desperate enough for you to sign the contract that they'll agree to any of our terms. They'd have you working in perpetuity. I gave the contract an expiration date of 5 years and a generous percentage of the profits. Then, we can negotiate for a better deal once you've expanded. She's right, Elvis said. But my superiors will be pleased, nonetheless. I won't bother you anymore unless summoned. Before I forget. An administrator has given you 20,000 crystals. You may use it at your own convenience. And one more thing, the cult of Astaroth is still out there. You have only destroyed the people directly responsible for your birth. Since you are now my client, I advise you to do something about it before the problems get bigger or worse. Or ignore it. It is up to you. As for the cult's complete destruction, the system's reward is still open. You should take it. Well, how great is this reward? Elvis grinned. Worth your time. You are given a rare opportunity to become one of the most powerful death cores in existence, my lord. The system does not give these rewards lightly. You received a quest. Destroy the cult of Astaroth on Earth. Leave no one alive. Show no mercy. I think you already know where to start, Elvis said. Portland, I said. Elvis glanced at the library, to Oracle peeking from behind the doorframe. Your friend over there will find them. Noted, I said. Elvis got up from the couch and stretched. Well, this has been fun. It is a pleasure doing business with you, Dungeon Mark. We will do great things together. Until then. Elvis and his guards vanished into thin air in the blink of an eye. Tell me, demon, did I make a mistake signing that? I asked when I was sure they were all gone. It depends on how you wield the contract, my liege. You are a core created by the system, a physical extension of it. Cores are the closest being to its power. Not the administrators. If the Imran Guild comes for you, create an army of giants, archliches, and dragons, and they'll change their tune sooner or later. If they attack you, it means they're delving. Whatever administrative powers they have over the system would vanish. What if they bring an army? An army is a farm to a death core. If the Imran Guild is smart, they won't hand you a buffet. Even puzzle cores acquire hundreds of essences from the deaths of thousands. Cunning rulers from other worlds always use an adventuring party to destroy a core. I frowned. Time will tell. My lord, what are your orders with the cultists in Portland? Jonas, their leader, called someone from London before he died. That's where Oracle traced at last. A flash of Jonas torn in half by the elevator doors entered my mind. I still relished the way he begged me. The cultists in Portland went underground, Oracle said from the computer. Oh? How so? I asked. They were expecting Justin Hodge to contact them upon the mission's success by dawn. He was 9 hours late. Shit. And they have a 9-hour head start. Obviously, I'm not dead, so the rats are fleeing. Oracle, do you have access to the cameras in that office building of theirs right now? Yes. Do you see anyone? Based on the keycard access, no one has entered the building in the past 16 hours since Jonas's death. They already know something is amiss, the demon said. It is possible that Astaroth has made contact with his mortal emissary, warning them of the danger. They have been marked. I turned back to Oracle. From those key cards, do you have names? Addresses? Yes. I have access to the building's security system. I know their names and where they live. Find them. Oracle took 14 minutes to compile a profile of 27 names. In the last 3 hours, their names appeared in a manifest for a one-way flight to New York and then a connection flight to London. The plane would leave in 40 minutes via a charter jet provided by Wellspring Domain LLC. That's fake as hell, I thought, amused. The demon had already exited Melanie's body, no longer able to tolerate the pain of occupying a corpse. Still, they hovered near me as I flew toward the library to access Oracle's computer screen directly. Goliath and Siren stood behind, waiting and watching. Oracle poured through the cult's emails, text messages, voicemails, and anything that could paint a picture of who these people were. Most of them did not know anything about the Death Corps or that Jonas and Justin Hodge had planned to create one. Based on the conversation they had that night, it was a very small circle who knew my true nature. However, they were all aware that Hodge went on a special mission with his sect on behalf of the seat, which I reckoned were probably their leaders. Unfortunately, the servers Oracle hacked didn't tell me who they were. Because Hodge, or any of his followers, failed to contact them, an order came from New York to abandon the Portland chamber, and everyone was ordered to leave Oregon. And now they were gathered in the Portland International Airport, waiting to board the chartered plane. Siren giggled behind me. What is it, Siren? Do you know something? Siren smiled and nodded. In the city where dreams never sleep, under neon lights secrets we keep, she sang in the tune of an upbeat pop ballad. Someone in New York can see your spark. Light up the night, ignite the dark. Oh, heavens do speak, let the stars align. Send a message to seek what's truly yours. Only blood is the call, the bond untold. Bring them to the fold, love, it's your gold. A message? Oh, heavens do speak. Oracle, What is your maximum access range to this aircraft? How many passengers does it have? There are 27 passengers, 2 pilots, 1 flight attendant. This is a private flight, so all of the passengers are cultists. Let the stars align, Siren sang in a beautiful falsetto, scratching a part of my brain that sent goosebumps all over my form. I have access to the aircraft for 25 minutes until they are no longer in range. Only blood is the call, the bond untold. And can you see the aircraft's trajectory, specifically once they are away from the populated areas? I will have a 4-minute window. Bring them to the fold, love. My gold, I finished for Siren. And I did see my golden ticket. From the security camera pointed at the waiting lounge, all 27 of the cultists sat scattered across the terminal. But my eyes were drawn to a woman reading a book by the corner of the feed. Her. She's Jonas's assistant. I think Allie is her name. She was there the night Melanie and Hodge visited him, I said. She probably knows who the other leaders are. Goliath pointed at his non-existent watch on his wrist. Right. No time. The plane leaves in half an hour, and we're too far away. But there is a way. I glanced at the 20,000 crystals that Elvis gave me. Plenty enough to buy anything with my unlimited access to the system. I just had to find the cheaper ones. I brought up the dungeon tab again, filtered my search, and narrowed my options. There. Teleportation pedestal. This 10 by 10 foot tall device allows you to teleport a single creature you know within 500 miles from the pedestal, provided you are familiar with their full name, exact appearance, and precise location. If any of this information is incorrect or incomplete, there is a 50% chance the creature will arrive at the pedestal deformed, injured, or dead. If you have 2 pedestals, you can link them together and form a chained network of portals within a range of 5 miles. Creatures immune or hidden from divination magic will not be teleported to the pedestal. Teleporting a single creature costs 500 crystals each. This was the cheapest and smallest, long-range teleportation device on the list, but it would still cost me 10,000 crystals, which was nothing to scoff at. But it might be useful in the future, I tried to convince myself. No, I had to do it. I hesitated for a moment, closed my eyes, and hit the purchase button. That's it. No takebacks. Allison Collins was the only person with multiple contacts with Jonas, who planned his daily schedules and knew the people he talked to because of her position as his secretary. She was the closest person who knew what was going on more than anyone else. Let's hope they're not immune to divination because this will fucking suck, I thought. And a waste of money. Are we running a scenario, my lord? The Siren sang excitedly. I looked at Siren. Huh. That's actually not a bad idea. I was feeling a bit peckish. We'll have to teleport 2 more Delvers for it to count. Oracle, out of the 26 cultists left, who are higher ranked. Oracle gave me 3 more names on the screen. If Allie refused to give me the answers I sought, perhaps the other 3 would be more malleable. I think I can spare 2,000 crystals to teleport 4 people. I knew their names. Their faces from their IDs. And thanks to Oracle hacking the airport's security cameras, their exact coordinates of where they sat, stood, pissed, or shit. If I had enough crystals, I would teleport all 27 and feed on them. But I had to save up the rest for other substantial improvements around my dungeon. I'll have dinner for 4, Oracle. What will you do once we know their names? They might be out of reach, out of our grasp, out of our control, Siren sang. We need 467 essences to create a second dungeon, right? Goliath and Siren both nodded eagerly. Sooner or later, they'll tell us their headquarters. London, New York, wherever it may be. And when they do, that's where I'll build my second dungeon. Stay close to them and eliminate them. What about the others waiting in the terminal? Crash the plane into the mountains. I thought about the 2 pilots and the flight attendant caught in this mess. Innocents in my war against the cult who destroyed me. But for all I know, this chartered flight came from another Astaroth worshipper they probably served. For all I know, they were a part of it. No, I couldn't afford to doubt myself. My decision was clear, even if it pained me. No survivors, I told Oracle. Even though I had only been a dungeon core for 5 days, I was beginning to find my groove in this new yet strange existence. There is an art to it, I'm used to myself. For a scenario to be successful, it took meticulous planning for the execution to pay off. And death cores needed a lot of planning. Running an impromptu scenario was not ideal, but I'll have to work with what I got. One thing I learned was that resolve never went away. Think of it as part of any mortal's body. It could even be an invisible organ. I like to imagine that the resolve's aura reflected a Delver's soul. That's just me personally. Outside a scenario, resolve was hidden from me, but when the game was up, they would all ignite beautifully in a multitude of tastes and colors. It surprised me how I missed it, like a drug addict searching for the next high. Resolve was always active, always changing, and always switching, even when the delvers were outside a dungeon. Happy, sad, anxious, calm, shame, lust, fear, a plethora of complex human emotions reflected in a gradient of hues. In theory, dungeon cores could still manipulate a delver's resolve outside our borders before they crossed the threshold into our domains. It might be harder without the help of our dread effects and visualizing the auras, but it's doable, especially for me. And besides, what was a death core very good at? Inflicting fear. Creating tension. Causing drama. Drawing bloodshed. Resolve was always on. Suppose I wanted a group of delvers already scared, distrustful, or paranoid, or giving them the heebie-jeebies, before they stepped foot into my cabin. In that case, I'd make spooky stuff happen on their way here the day before, shedding their resolve. Even a tiny slide down the gradient mattered. Divide and fucking conquer, motherfuckers. In theory, this should work. And I am going to test this theory on these cultists. Imagine it, like seasoning the vegetables or marinating the meat hours before it sizzled on the grill. And fear was my secret sauce. It was the most basic emotion to impose on a human, ingrained into our instincts when we were still climbing trees and had tails. Fear was simple. Fear was absolute. I called this phase of the scenario simply Act 1, or the pre-game. It involved setting up the scene, throwing down the hook, preparing the flesh, and letting fear seep into a delver's skin and take hold of them. 100 miles away, Allie Collins stepped on stage and began Act 1. I could tell from the camera feed that Allie was already growing anxious. She was constantly checking on her phone, biting her fingernails, shaking her right knee, and had left multiple voice messages to her boss, Jonas. The rat fuck was already dead, but he hadn't answered her for almost a day. She'd be waiting for a long, long time. She might think, oh, this is so unlike him. Based on his response to her previous calls, texts, or emails over the past 3 years, Jonas usually answered her within 10 minutes. Seeing that gave me hope that she was the right person to question the cult, which called itself the Havishar Society. Allie had known Jonas for 3 years, so she was bound to hear something important. If not, then she's just incompetent. Or worse, an idiot. Another good news was that Jonas slept with his secretaries over the years. I might have said that wrong. Good news in a sense that Allie's likelihood of discovering things she wasn't meant to see or hear increased exponentially. His computer saved up a lot of photos of exotic trips with his former secretaries and other younger women in scantily clad clothing and several videos saved of past, let's just say, happy encounters I'd rather not watch. Jonas and Allie were no exception. He had been seeing her romantically for the past year or so, taking her to expensive dinner dates around the city and buying her gifts. It was also clear that Allie was attracted to him from the flirtatious glances she gave him, seen by all the cameras around the office building, and from the texts and unprompted risque selfies she sent him. Never mind that she had a boyfriend at the time, and it seemed the breakup was not too long ago when Jonas started getting serious. I didn't want to delve deep into how grossly inappropriate such a dynamic was, especially when Jonas was old enough to be her father. Give or take, I'd put her resolve to a dull yellow. Probably ticking down every few minutes as her worries grew. But it might hover there for a long while until she boarded the plane. This was harder than I thought. I was so used to seeing their aura that it just didn't feel right. I didn't know how far, or little, I should push her buttons. Are you ready? I asked Oracle. Oracle gave me a thumbs up on the screen. Are you ready, Goliath? I asked Goliath in the teleportation chamber I hastily built in the tunnels. Goliath also gave me a confident thumbs up. He stood waiting next to the teleportation pedestal, ready to knock out any cultist who teleported through it with the butt of his axe. The pedestal was a flat, spherical platform made from basalt and stone. I was expecting something more elaborately designed, or with fancy archways, or that it magically glowed with a specific color. Still, it's just a slab of rock that would blend perfectly into someone's backyard. Carved on the edges were simple runic words that my core quickly translated as, "Step forth, but beware. What departs may not return." I clapped my non-existent hands together. Okay, showtime. The private charter terminal lounge, or the VIP lounge, was a lot nicer and plushier than what the commoners enjoyed, forced to survive amongst other irritated passengers. But here, they had a bar, a private kitchen with a chef, free Wi-Fi, cozy music, a good view of the airport and Mount Hood outside, and excellent service from the staff. It looked more like a glorified hotel lobby. They even had a bath, spa, and shower for the guests while they waited for their flight. Another woman approached Allie and sat down beside her in a huff, clearly annoyed by what was happening. The two women already knew each other very well. Ugh, they don't have lox bagels on their menu, and they forgot to remove whipped cream in my coffee. I specifically told them no. Fucking whip. She took a sip of the coffee and cringed. Blah, I also think they burned it. Must be a new barista. Allie put down her phone, unaware I was listening through it. So, how was your afternoon, Jessica? Don't even start with me, girl. I forgot to pack my toiletries because we got out of the apartment in such a hurry. And now we're here waiting for the plane to get ready. We could have spared another 20 minutes, but Brandon said we had to go. I even forgot my favorite perfume. Allie pursed her lips. Where's your boyfriend anyway? Brandon went for number 2. Oh. You look super pale, girl. Have you had anything to eat all day? No. Not really, Allie said sheepishly. Do you want to order? I'm fine, Jess. I got you. Jessica handed her a bag of mixed nuts and dried raspberries. At least have a few bites. You look like an anorexic ghost. Jessica Pruitt. She's part of the list, I said to Siren and Old Growth watching behind me. Jessica was half a decade older than Allie and had a longer history with the cult by several years. However, her position in the cult stagnated, and she became more of a glorified middle manager to the rest of the organization. Based on her file on the hacked server, she had little to no magical talent, the cult's words, not mine. She was the type of woman who encapsulated her personality in beige, pumpkin spice aesthetics, thinking she was the first person to emulate it. From her social media posts, everything had to be perfect and aesthetically geometric, as if she were living in a Wes Anderson movie. That's good for me, though. She lived and breathed social media, practically an extra limb that slammed her with dopamine high every few minutes. Also proudly telling her followers how she has an awesome boyfriend even though she was emotionally abusing him behind the scenes when things didn't get her way. So it was very easy to form a compiled psychological profile about her. She's basic. Her boyfriend, Brandon Satcher, was also the same. Not obsessed with beige tones, but with gym bro life and flannel shirts, meat lover and grilling, and Oakley glasses and interior truck selfies. Also proudly not telling the long list of women he matched within the dating apps that he already has a girlfriend, and gaslight Jessica when Stacy lip-piercing texted him she had fun last night. They're both trash. Also, they were both members of the Vancouver sect for at least 4 years now, and though their crimes didn't revolve around murdering people, like Hodge and his followers did, their sect extorted, blackmailed, and threatened several political figures in Portland and Vancouver to allocate large amounts of money for the cult. Jessica was a damn good lawyer who kept the cult away from the law, especially their murdering ways. I mean, if you gotta be the queen bitch, she found her true calling. On the other hand, Brandon was a poor excuse for an accountant laundering the Havishar Society's money. They might be trash, but both were essential cogs in the society's infernal machine. And I will break them. The fourth man on my list was Conrad Crespo, a balding, pot-bellied man in his mid-40s with a fake tan, who was busy shouting at his frustrated wife over the phone several feet away from where Allie and Jessica were sitting. When the order was sent out, the cultists could not bring their families with them, even the fake ones for their cover, promising that this was only temporary and that they were having an emergency assembly. They should expect to return to their everyday lives in a week or so. The 27 people I was watching through Oracle were all members of the Pacific Northwest Coalition of the Havishar Society. It was a lot smaller than I imagined, and I had no idea how many members there were in the South or around the East Coast. Many of the cultists had left their families behind with the excuse of a business meeting out in the East. Conrad's wife was obviously distraught, and they had been talking on the phone for almost half an hour now. Conrad tried to calm his wife down, but she had a right to be upset. They were going to celebrate their 10-year anniversary, and then he cancelled their evening and left without even saying goodbye except through text. Of course, he gave the excuse that he was going to an emergency business meeting in New York, that it was very important, and that he'd be right back. His wife could see through the lie. Oracle gave her access to Conrad's email address, password, and the confirmation email for his plane ticket. Stamped clearly on it, in big letters, was Heathrow Airport, London. She accused him of cheating and lying to her and hung up the call. Conrad had been trying to get a hold of her ever since. For extra icing on the cake, Oracle also sent his wife access to his cloud, and the pictures of multiple selfies of scantily clad women, and access to his Tinder account. His wife sent him just one picture, a screenshot of his account on the app, catfishing as a dude bro 25-year-old hunk to lure younger women for their pictures, and Conrad knew he was truly fucked. Oracle's scary sometimes, I chuckled. Conrad was the cult's parcel messenger, transporting artifacts to and from their Portland location to another chamber across the country. Next to Ali, he's the second best man to question how the cult was organized outside of Oregon. Conrad strode toward Jessica, sweating. Jess, is it okay if I catch the next flight? I just got to see my wife. Do you not see that plane, Conrad? That little plane over there? Yeah, we're supposed to get in that. Jessica pointed out the window. It's already in the taxi. We'll board soon, besides, it's a chartered flight. I was given orders to bring everyone, so I'm bringing everyone, including you. Look, it's only going to be a day. Unlike you, I don't mind riding at the back of the plane. Wow. How cool of you to be so humble in this economy, Jessica said sarcastically. Well, we don't know what's going on and why we've been summoned, okay? For all I know, we're in a fucking shit show, and it's the end of the world. It's very strange for the seat to summon us like this. They've never done that. Allie, have you experienced anything like this? Allie looked like she desperately wanted the ground to swallow her. No. Jessica smirked. Right? Conrad? Have you ever experienced the seat summoning us like this? No? Neither do I. Neither does Allie. So, I suggest you stay put and shut up over there. But my wife. I don't give an F about your wife, okay? She'll survive without you. Leave me alone. I already have a headache. She took another sip of her coffee. Conrad ignored Jessica and turned to Allie. Did Jonas say anything, Allie? Allie shook her head. I'm still trying to reach him. Did you hear anything at all? Maybe from Hodge? He pressed on. No. Jessica scoffed. Clearly, Hodge fucked up. That guy was a ticking time bomb, and I'm surprised it took this long. We haven't heard from them for hours now, and it's enough to make the seat nervous. If I were you, Conrad, I'd board that plane if you know what's good for you. Jessica stood up while massaging her temples. I need an Advil, and I'm gonna get my boyfriend. Can you hold my stuff, pretty please? She handed Allie her cup of coffee and bagels before stomping off toward the bathroom. Conrad glared at her back as she walked away. What a bitch. Hey, I heard that, Allie said, glaring back at him. Asshole. She turned around to put the bagel and the cup of coffee on the table beside her. It should be Jonas calling the shots around here. Have you seriously tried? You think I didn't? Why don't you call him instead? Allie whirled around, annoyed and pissed off, but when she was about to hand him her phone, he was no longer standing there. Conrad? I could feel the gears turning inside her head. No one was that fast. She barely looked away for 2 seconds, and Allie shook her head. She must be imagining it. I could tell from the dark circles under her eyes, and from her health tracker on her phone, that she barely had any sleep last night, waiting for Jonas. She asked another man wearing a Transformers shirt, another cultist, sitting a few seats down if he saw where Conrad went, but he was watching a YouTube video with his headphones on and didn't notice him walk by. Allie was afraid that she was losing it. No one around her noticed he disappeared. At the periphery of my vision, I lost 500 crystals. Then, her phone rang. Allie almost jumped when she saw the caller's ID, Jonas. She quickly answered it. Hello? Jonas? Are you okay? Hello? Allie? Yeah, it's me, I said, but Jonas's voice came through the other line. Are you at the airport? Yeah, we're all already here. Where are you? Are you coming? Well, she's convinced. Damn, that's quite good, I complimented Oracle, careful not to speak directly to Allie. Oracle grabbed every audio file he could, from voicemails to videos of Jonas, and matched his cadence, tone, and manner of speech perfectly. Listen, Allie. You have to get out of there, I said. What? Why? What's going on? Whatever you do, do not board that plane. But the others, they. Don't tell the others. Get out of the airport now. What's this about? I'll explain everything once you're out of there. I'm waiting outside. Grab your bags. Hurry. Okay. I'm going. Allie grabbed her purse and walked away from the VIP lounge area. Turn left, I said. She paused. What? Can you see me? Wave to the camera. Allie looked around and spotted the security camera at the corner above a clothing store. She nodded and pivoted to the right, heading toward the escalator. Take the escalator. And then what? You'll be at the West Wing terminal. Try to head towards Gate 5. Got it. I waited for at least 3 minutes, watching her wade through the crowd of commuters. Finally, she walked past Gate 4. Turn right. Allie did as I told her. She stopped in her tracks. This is a staff door, Jonas. Why? You'll have to go through there. Safer this way. But it needs a key card, and I don't want to get in trouble with the TSA. The key card access panel next to the door instantly turned red to green. Go, I said sternly. Allie froze, astonished. How'd you do that? Just get inside, Allie. We don't have much time. Look, this is seriously freaking me out. I know. Just trust me. Walk past that door, turn left for 100 feet, get down a flight of stairs, then turn left again. You'd see an emergency exit door. I'm right outside, okay? It'll all be over soon. Allie reluctantly went inside. Like a lost lamb to the slaughter. There was a security guard wandering the hallway by the bottom of the stairs, but Oracle found the quickest way to neutralize him. He overloaded the taser gun clamped on his belt, and the guard quickly fell to the ground and pissed himself unconscious. We have a problem, Siren sang. She pointed at the other camera feed, which showed the same man in the Transformers shirt following Allie. What was his name again? Andre? I checked Oracle's list again and found him at the top, though his picture was a decade older. Andre Brunel, a French transplant, was an entrepreneur, mostly tech, who had lavishly used the cult's money to grow his security company around Seattle. In return, he gave the cult the networking list he had accumulated over the years, thereby spreading the Havishar Society's influence within the tech industry. Obviously, he overheard the conversation earlier. He was too quick than I thought, and he managed to reach the staff door before it closed, slipped inside, and continued following Allie's trail. Oh my God, I think I see a body, Allie shrieked after she climbed down the stairs. Ignore it. Just keep going, I said. You're almost there. See that access hallway? Turn left there. I don't like this, Jonas. Panic swelled in her voice. Good. Almost there. Wait, I think I see the emergency door, Allie said as she entered the long hallway. Great. I'm on the other side waiting. I'll start the car. Allie picked up her speed toward the emergency exit door, heels clacked against the concrete floor, echoing across the long hallway. I made a quick check around the surrounding area to make sure that she was alone. Except for Andre. He was just climbing down the metal staircase, hot on her heels. Find anything to stop him? No. Searching. Oracle had already tried calling to distract him earlier, but he ignored the unknown number. He also made it look like his mother was calling, but Andre ignored it anyway, rolling his eyes and clearly irritated by the interruption. However, he did stop in his tracks when he saw the unconscious guard lying on the ground and went over to check on his pulse. The guard was still alive. That should give me an extra minute or so. Allie finally reached the emergency door and pushed it open. It didn't budge. I can't get the door open. What? She tried pushing on the egress bar again. Shit. It's locked or something. It's an emergency door. It opens when you push on them, Allie. I'm doing that right now. It's not opening, okay? She put her entire body weight to push the door open, but it didn't budge an inch. She slammed her fist on the door. God damn it. Do you know what type of door that is, Allie? Allie let out a huff. What? She snipped. The door. What are you on about? She asked in frustration. That door has an electromagnetic lock, and I just disabled the authorized push button. No matter how hard you push, that door won't open. You'd have to manually do it through the bypass switch, which you won't have access to with the little time you have left. It dawned on her now, the quivering hitch in her breath, the way her mouth hung slightly open, her gaze staring blankly at the door, her hands shaking slightly. Adrenaline coursed through her veins, sending multiple signals to flee or fight. "You're not Jonas," she said, her voice trembling. "Smart girl," I said, chuckling. "You watch horror movies, right, Allie? Do you know what happens to the dumb characters who wander off on their own? Well, this is the part when you run." Allie didn't wait for a beat. She quickly pivoted her heels and ran down the long hallway, and in her mad dash, she lost her grip on her purse. Behind her, the overhead lights shut off, plunging that section of the hallway into darkness. The shadows chased after her. Just an extra touch, I thought. You couldn't go wrong with the classic hallway horror cliché. Lights turning off one by one. Echoing bass drops with each plunge into the shadows. The glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel, the way to safety. And yet, the shadows continue creeping in from the periphery of the screen until it swallows it completely. "Allie!" Andre shouted, catching her by the arm and shoulder as she leaped out of the hallway. She screamed. Hey, hey! Calm down. What's going on? What were you doing here? Let go of me. Let go of me. Allie shrieked, trying to wriggle out of Andre's grasp. I'd bet all my crystals what her resolve was about now. Satisfied, I triggered the teleportation pedestal. Allie disappeared within a single frame from the camera feed, vanishing in the blink of an eye. What I didn't count was for Andre Brunel to teleport with her. In hindsight, I didn't know much about teleportation or how they worked at a base level. This was my first time using it, so I was bound to make some mistakes. As it turned out, there were a few disclaimers when casting such powerful divination spells. Most importantly, the target must not be close to another creature when teleporting them, like touching someone. 6 feet apart was the golden rule. If you didn't follow that particular rule, you'd end up with a big fucking mess. And I wasn't ready for all the blood. A loud popping sound set off on the pedestal when Allie materialized on it safely. She was a bit dizzy and confused, looking like her knees were about to buckle. Andre appeared on the pedestal, too, for about 4 seconds. He managed to utter 2 sentences. The first sentence was, "What the?" Andre gasped, eyes darting around the circular teleportation chamber until his gaze landed on the prone and unconscious bodies of Conrad, Jessica, and Brandon off to the corner. Allie followed where he was looking at. The second sentence was, "Where are we?" He didn't get to finish it. It was so sudden I half thought I was the one in big trouble. It frightened me so much that I yelped loudly, making Siren and Oldie jump in surprise, too. By the time I realized what was going on, well, to be honest, it made me pause for a second. Andre's lower half exploded, blood, bone, and chunks of flesh splattering everywhere. Goliath was not safe either, drenched in Andre's blood and gore from head to toe. The force knocked Allie off her feet and sent her rolling down on her stomach. Andre landed next to her a split second later in a wet, squelching thud. Now, Andre was still alive and conscious. So was Allie, although shocked and frightened. Who wouldn't be when you just witnessed someone burst into a pulp? Andre still had enough strength to prop himself up by his elbows and look down, screaming, when he realized he was missing the other lower half of his body. With my many eyes, I saw everything. I could go back, replay, and see every fucking nanosecond of it. I could slow it down in my brain and watch as the explosion originated inside Andre's kneecaps. The way the patella crackled like a popcorn kernel under heat and pressure. The way it split the skin folds of his knees, splintered outward and shattered as if he had just stepped foot onto a landmine, obliterating flesh, sinew, and bone. The end result made it look like Andre's legs burst and went through a blender. And the blood was just everywhere. My legs, my legs. Andre screeched, face quickly draining of color. Allie just sobbed, struggling to breathe from all the screaming she made, trying to wipe the blood off her face with her bare hands. Her resolve dipped to a deep orange. Perfect. As for Andre, Goliath could sense how many seconds Andre had left before the adrenaline wore off and he passed out. He stepped forward. It was the first time Allie and Andre noticed another person in the room with them. They heard Goliath's heavy footsteps first, then the glint of the axe raised in the gloom. Andre looked up to Goliath looming over him, axe raised over his head, and with one fell swoop, brought the axe cleanly through Andre's forehead, splitting his skull. Andre immediately went limp, and Allie screamed. Goliath let out an exasperated sigh. He crouched beside her and then punched her square in the face. Allie went out cold, a reddening spot under her left eye. You have gained 1 essence, Andre Brunel. You have gained 150 crystals. Huh. That must be some record. Andre was the fastest delver to enter my domain and drop red instantly. Also, this was the fastest run in which I collected essence and crystals. 17 seconds. Not bad. Are you enjoying this? I mused, looking off to the side to the invisible watchers, probably enjoying this brief bout of sudden violence. I bet you are. I ignored the thought of hundreds, maybe thousands, of administrators watching me like creepy voyeurs. I needed to focus, and there was more work to do. 1 down, 26 more to go. Allie and the others wouldn't wake up anytime soon. I made sure of that. All it took was a little sprinkle of the cheapest purple pixie dust, purple for charmed effects like sleep, which cost me 5 crystals per packet for 1 use, knocking them out for the next 2 hours. And 2 hours are good enough for me. While the delvers were asleep, I had more time to prepare them for Act 2, the rising tension. The lure. Baiting them toward their eventual doom. The part when the fear builds to a bloody crescendo until, eventually, the delvers start screaming, groveling, and running, picked off one by one. And, of course, the introduction of the main villain. The administrators are watching us, my lord, eyes flickering with glee, the siren reminded me. Of course, they are, I sighed. Can you see them? The siren shook her head. Blood is in the water, joyful sounds of slaughter. Right. I triggered a scenario, and the crows came flocking, ready to witness a maddening feast. Should I make this a proper scenario? These are cultists, after all. Technically, I could kill them quickly once I got the answers I was looking for. But the administrators might find that boring. I rolled my eyes. Why do I care? I'm not here to please them. I will still get 10,000 crystals by the end of it. Elvis did mention the Watchers could give me other things, too, like more bonus crystals. Can they also give me other rewards? I wondered. No, focus. I told myself. I turned to Goliath. Have you applied all the pixie dust on them? Goliath nodded. Good. Keep an eye on them. This shouldn't take me more than 10 minutes. Building a dungeon room under the cabin was that simple and fast when magic was involved. It would take longer if I had to change, bulldoze, manipulate the terrain, or build something more complex and meticulous. But all I needed for now was a simple room and a simpler contraption. When I opened the core menu screen by just thinking about it, time stopped, like pausing in the middle of a video game. The outside world didn't literally pause per se but slowed down to milliseconds, giving me enough time to do plenty of things. Out of the corner of my eyes, Goliath was slowly scratching his jaw. Core. Dungeons. Monsters. Traps. Quests. Rumors. The bottom 2 were new additions to the menu. It appeared after I completed my first official scenario with the full blessing of an administrator. Quests was pretty self-explanatory. I only had 2 things in there, the quest to eradicate the cult of Astaroth and the second one was to collect 467 essences to create my second dungeon. 466 now. I looked down at Andre's corpse dragged off to a corner, away from the others. On the other hand, rumors was something I didn't quite understand yet. I opened it to read the messages that had popped up several hours ago. North Cedar Lake has earned the Modern Folklore perk. Denizens nearby know the macabre stories of your dungeon and the creatures that dwell inside. You have 5 empty myths. Creating a myth increases a dungeon and an archetype's dread effects. Error, no myths created yet. Would you like to do that now? I told the prompt to go away for now. I reckoned that would take too long, even several days of writing and planning. It didn't seem like something I should rush over, especially when it could magically implant false memories in the people around me. Next to the teleportation chamber, I built a hexagonal room about 40 feet wide with a flat, circular platform at the center where my contraption stood. 4 very uncomfortable metallic chairs faced each other, and in the middle was a tube with a self-loading crossbow on top that could rotate 160 degrees. But something is still missing, I thought. Well, I still have 6 minutes left. I looked at the bare walls, and they needed a little more pizzazz, something enticing to bring the room together. An idea formed, and I smiled. I went over my options, and I decided to go for a more industrial-looking aesthetic. Like a warehouse. I carved through the floor and plunged the room another 20 feet to add narrow catwalks, ladders, and air vents. Of course, the exit was right by the highest catwalk next to the engineering room. Inside was a console table with random buttons that didn't work. Hissing steam from the heating pipes covered the walls, and I even added a protruding cylindrical vat with a greenish, acidic substance floating inside. Random chains hang from the ceiling and at the ends, glinting with sharp hooks and dried blood. The floors were caked with grime, oily puddles, and soot. And, of course, I couldn't forget about the smell. Iron, sulfur, decaying organic matter, and various odd chemicals suffused the chamber. I also raised the temperature to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. I wanted it to feel like the sweltering heat of summer, sweat sticking to your shirt and skin, which accidentally also increased the moisture in the room, creating a hazy fog. And last, the furnace itself. Fire burning, crackling with anger. Engines whistled and wheezed as the machine breathed. Freddy Krueger will be right at home. Once the chamber was complete, Goliath dragged all the cultists and secured them on the metallic seats. "Do you think I went overboard?" I asked Goliath about the furnace chamber. Goliath looked around, nodding with approval. He threw me 2 thumbs up. "Oh, so you like it?" Goliath rests the palm of his hand on his chest. Ah, he didn't like it. He loved it. I smiled. "Oh, good. Ready to give them a show?" Goliath raised his eyebrows and pointed at himself reluctantly. Yeah. You'll play first. Oldie will be in the tunnels in case they get that far. If they get extremely lucky, Demon and Siren will watch the woods and the lake. Goliath gave me the OK symbol, tilted his head questioningly, went up the ladder again, and returned to the teleportation chamber. He dragged Andre's body to the furnace chamber. Once he reached the catwalk, Goliath didn't feel like carrying him down the ladder, he just threw him over the railing, and his body fell 30 feet below. The pixie dust still had an hour left, and I watched Goliath work his magic. He cut, chopped, dissected, and violated Andre's corpse. He slowly propped the limbs around the crossbow tube. I had no idea what he was going for, but I told him this was his show, so I didn't interfere. Once he was done, I realized what he was going for, a snowman made from Andre's body parts. He chopped off the man's split head and placed it on the flat surface just above the crossbow section. He forced open Andre's intact right eye, ensuring he was making eye contact with whomever the crossbow was aiming at. And just to add an extra creep factor, Goliath sliced through Andre's cheeks to make him smile from ear to ear. He stepped back and admired his grotesque work. "Jesus, Goliath," I said. "That's, a lot." Goliath smiled and raised his hands into tiger claws. "Meant to be scary," he would say. "Well, it's scary and fucked up, alright." He proudly tapped on his chest again, loving it. "It's your show, big man. Give them a good scare." Allie was the last person to wake up from Jessica screaming from seeing Andre's brutalized corpse. They were all annoyingly shouting and crying out for help in the past 5 minutes. They tried to escape from their bonds, but their wrists were secured on the chair's armrests, and their ankles locked to the chair's legs. Only Goliath could release them by pulling the lever at the platform's edge. I let them sit there for a good 10 minutes, sweating, swearing, and crying. Letting them ruminate in their thoughts, let the fear of the unknown simmer deep inside until it boiled over. "Hello? Is anybody there?" Brandon shouted. Goliath was kind enough to put his pants back on when we teleported him from the toilet. "Ah. It's no use," Conrad said. "No one's gonna help us." "Brandon, where are we?" Jessica sobbed. "What do they want with us?" "I don't know, baby. But once I'm out of this fucking chair, I swear, I'm gonna fuck them up." "That's not helping, Brandon," Allie said. "We don't even know who they are." "And Andre?" Conrad caught the glint in her eye. "What? You know something? Because last time I remember, I was talking to you, and then I was in this dark room, and something hit me on the back of the head." "Same for me," Brandon and Jessica said at the same time. "I got a call," Allie said. "What call?" Jessica asked. "From Jonas." But it wasn't Jonas. The man on the other line said he was. Allie paused. "Well? He was what?" Conrad asked impatiently. Allie tried to hold back her tears. "He said he's dead. He led me out of the terminal." And I was being so stupid that I thought it was him. It sounded exactly like him. I ran, I grabbed Andre, and then one thing I know, we were on this platform, and Andre he just, exploded. Her resolve dropped to orange as she recollected the memory. All of their resolve hovered between yellow and orange, and Goliath didn't even do anything yet. So we all saw the platform, Brandon said. We were all at the airport, and now we ended up here in a blink of an eye. It's gotta be some kind of teleportation magic. Does this sound like divination magic to any of you? Conrad, do you know any divination artifacts like this? Conrad shook his head. Look, I transported many things for the society across the country, but I know nothing about a device that can teleport people, okay? I don't even know if the others have it. I'm just a low-level courier. They won't even let me touch the good shit. Could it be the Institute? Jessica asked. I caught the slight shiver in her voice. The Institute? That's interesting. Another demonic cult? A rival faction, perhaps? Conrad shook his head again. The Institute don't go kidnapping and murdering people. How would you know? You've never encountered them before. Those who do end up in prison or, if they're lucky, dead, Brandon said. Exactly. Dead. From bullets. They don't waste their time bringing us here, Conrad said. Allie hitched her breath all of a sudden. Unless they want to question us. You are correct, I said, revealing myself. My voice reverberated across the furnace chamber from the loudspeakers across the room. Oracle had to modulate my pitch to make it sound more intimidating. They all looked around the room, trying to find the source of the voice. Their gaze lingered on the engineering room, but it was way too high, and they couldn't see through the window due to the hazy fog. Goliath stepped out of the shadows behind the towering steel vat and approached the platform with heavy steps while dragging his axe. He stopped right next to the release lever. The others trembled and gasped, though only Allie had a visceral reaction to him. After all, he did punch her in the face, and her cheek was turning blotchy red and blue. That's the guy, Allie said, squirming. That's the guy who killed Andre. What do you want? Jessica shrieked. Please, just let us go. You don't know who you are fucking with. Brandon said. Astaroth, Domini, Exaudiorationum meme. Oh, I know exactly who you all are, Brandon Satcher. Your god is not here, I said. Astaroth has no power here. Brandon paused mid-prayer and glared, still trying to find me. You may have realized what happened to you and how I brought you into my domain. You may have realized what kind of power I had to use to do it. So do not test me. Do not challenge me, for my punishments are severe and, to be honest, quite painful. He will save us, Brandon said, though his confidence waned. I smiled. Yet, he did not save Justin and Melanie Hodge, nor did their flock. That shut them up. They knew who Justin Hodge was, what he was capable of, and how important he was to the Havishar society. I wiped him and his crew out like a bug. I added, perhaps you do not know who you are dealing with. So, let me introduce myself. My name is Mark Benedict Castle. I am a dungeon core, and the cult of Astaroth sacrificed me to claim, in their arrogance, the power of the universe. Only your friends did not take into account my refusal to be compliant and enslaved. And now they are all dead. A television screen materialized next to Conrad, showing them the security feed of Jonas's death. I made sure that Oracle added audio so that they could hear Jonas begging me to spare him before the elevator cut him in half. Allie shrieked and cried. Jessica pleaded to be let go. Conrad whimpered and let his bladder go, darkening his pants. Only Brandon was quiet, putting up a brave face, but his resolve's aura betrayed him as it slipped from a golden yellow into a dull orange. Next footage, please, I said to Oracle and everyone to hear. The screen flashed to a recording of the security feed in the same VIP lounge where the other cultists had gathered. The flight had already been delayed for 20 minutes as 3 cultists searched for Allie and the others across the airport. They called off the search when the pilots got impatient and decided to leave without them. All 22 cultists boarded the plane. What is this? Allie asked. Watch, I said. 5 more monitors appeared around the platform, showing various camera feeds from the cultists' open laptops and phones, the flight path across northern Oregon, and the cameras from the cockpit and by the cockpit door. The first 25 minutes were uneventful. I actually had to fast forward through the footage, especially when the flight attendant handed out dinner. Chicken or beef? She asked. Not even halfway through, she had already run out of chicken. Like always. Why are you showing us this? Brandon asked. Again, I said, watch. Just watch. Oracle found a way to bring the survival rate of a plane crash to 0. Bringing the plane down onto a mountain or a forested area still gave the cultists a little chance to survive the impact. I couldn't take that chance. So, Oracle decided to make the plane explode. Now, planes wouldn't just randomly explode up in the sky. There were plenty of steps that should occur for that to happen. A lot of negligence, bad structural design, and freak accidents. Since Oracle could control tech and electronics, we could create the illusion of negligence and freak accidents. And the way to do it was to manipulate the plane's fuel inerting system by shutting off the check valve. This system reduced the amount of oxygen inside the fuel tank by introducing an inert gas like nitrogen. Without it, the amount of oxygen would rise inside the tank. But it would still take quite a long time for the oxygen to build, maybe months or years. Time that I do not have. Which brought us to the second step. While the plane was still in the taxi waiting for the cultists to board, Oracle short-circuited the air cycle machine, especially the refrigeration packs that controlled the air conditioning of the entire plane, which generated a lot of heat, creating vapor and increasing pressure. Vapor and pressure were important if you want to blow shit up with fuel. As the pressure rose, the tank's integrity gradually deteriorated. Luckily for Oracle and me, this was an older plane and smaller than other commercial aircraft, which meant these air conditioning packs were placed directly beneath the fuel tank, sharing the same voltage and currents. We also had to shut off the system to reduce the heat generated by the damaged refrigeration packs. So the pressure just keeps on growing and growing and growing. Warning signals from the cockpit told the pilots that something was definitely wrong with the plane. They wouldn't see it, though, not with Oracle controlling the monitoring systems. They believed everything was normal. Then, to step 3, once the oxygen levels inside the tank were sufficient enough, Oracle moved to manipulate the fuel quantity indicator system by introducing a high-voltage charge inside the tank's fuel gauge. The last thing the pilots saw was the unusual increase in fuel they were carrying on the console. Oracle allowed them to contact Portland's air traffic control that something was wrong with their system. On paper, this needed to look like an accident, a very unfortunate accident. And then, a second high-voltage charge. The cabin shuddered. All at once, the passengers felt something was off, not a normal turbulence. Beneath them, the tank expanded outward. And then, the monitors around the platform went black, except for one. It showed a video of a family out on a hike along the Larch Mountain Trail. The husband was filming his wife and their 3 children reaching Sherrard Point. In the background, at least 8 other hikers were in the shot with them, taking photos and enjoying the warm, sunny September day with no clouds in the sky. What was obvious was the tiny dot flying in the background, leaving contrails in its wake. Allie and the others could feel what was coming, although they didn't want to believe it. Then, a huge fireball engulfed the upper left corner of the screen. The hikers gasped and screamed, pointing fingers at the blazing ball of debris plummeting toward the forest. Miraculously, one cultist survived the initial explosion. James McNerney was filming Mount Hood from the distance when the explosion split the plane in half. His phone filmed the entire ordeal as the cabin depressurized and his chair was sucked out of the plane. It would take him 50 seconds to reach the ground, and he clutched that phone for dear life. I mean, we heard and saw everything. He prayed. He screamed. He begged. In the middle of the fall, he managed to unbuckle himself from his seat, hurtling into a spiral and unable to hold on to his phone. I watched his body burst through the forest's canopy, his head slammed against the branches, his body spinning and spinning down until he hit the ground with a loud cracking thud. The phone, another miracle, survived the fall. James McNerney did not. Error. You cannot collect 25 essences of James McNerney, Clive Beecham, Edwina Leung, Barbara Serratos, Malcolm Serratos, etc. Location, 82.7 miles outside of the dungeon border. Delvers out of bounds. You cannot collect an essence outside of the dungeon's perimeter. If you cannot determine your dungeon's borders, please look at your dread effect, which is a standard 2-mile radius from your core. The greater the distance, the lesser your dread effect can influence a given area and collect any Delver's essence. This will also determine your base border. Note that your physical border and its effects can expand over time as your core ages and grows in power. I had seen the same message before when Leo Grady escaped to find the park ranger. Old growth killed the latter, and when I killed Jonas back at the society's office. The system didn't appreciate it when I wasted essences. I turned my attention to the other's shocked expressions. You killed them? Conrad asked, bewildered. Yes, I said. What do you want? Allie asked. You killed Jonas. You killed my friends. Friends? I asked. I thought the Havishar Society did not believe in the concept of friends. I guess if you belong to a cult, such things get twisted and muddled. What do you want? Allie repeated sternly. It is quite simple, really. I paused. Tell me the names of the seat, and I will give you a chance to live. I could feel each of their muscles tensed and clenched. I hit a fucking mine, didn't I? The seat's identities are meant to be secret, Allie explained. Not to Jonas, I said. And you have been particularly close to him the past year. And what about Conrad, the courier? You had dealings with artifacts from all over the other sects across the country. You were bound to meet them at some point, given you've been working for the society for over 11 years. As for Brandon and Jessica, well, you two handled the financial capabilities of your sect. Especially Jessica, when you are the big-shot lawyer. You were bound to have a run-in with the seat in your 4 years of service. No, I did not. I didn't even meet any of them. Jessica exclaimed. A reddish glow emanated from Goliath's palm, a tiny crystalline orb. He walked toward the tube and shoved the glowing red orb inside Andre's gaping mouth. Unfortunately, Miss Pruitt, I know you are lying. You met with one of them, I see. I did not. The orb grew redder. You see that orb over there? Think of it as a lie detector, only perfectly accurate. My question to the four of you is very simple. What are the names of the members of the seat? Now, the next thing I am about to say is very important. If you give me a fake name, this orb will know it, and there will be consequences. The panel below Andre's decapitated head slid down, revealing the self-loading crossbow, currently pointed at Conrad. If you refuse to answer it, there will also be consequences, I added. They didn't have to know that this orb only worked when it was 15 feet away. They didn't have to know that this orb only had a 10-minute charge, and time was of the essence. The orb's red glow gradually dissipated into a cloudy, milky white ball. I will give you 3 chances. But if the orb glows red 3 times, you die. And I have a feeling you all wanted to live. Conrad panicked. What the fuck? What the fuck is this? Let us out. I don't know anything. The orb turned red again. I frowned. Liar. Thwack. The crossbow shot out, and the bolt slammed into Conrad's shoulder. He held like a wounded beast, shaking and trembling as he gaped at the bolt lodged deep into his flesh just under the collarbone. Phew-uck! He screamed. Everyone's resolve wavered dangerously close to the brink when they realized there was no escape from this contraption, not until they gave me names. Still, their loyalty to the cult and to Astaroth was greater. I'll change their tune soon, I thought. The crossbow swiveled around and pointed at Jessica. No. No, no, no. Jessica begged. Please, no. If you dare fucking touch her, Brandon glowered at Goliath. Or what? I asked. What will you do, Brandon? You are stuck in that chair like everyone else. What are you planning to do? I'll kill you. I grinned. I highly doubt that, but whatever makes you feel better. Anyway, Jessica, you know what to give me. Jessica sobbed. But I don't know anything. I swear. The orb was still red. Jessica realized it, too, and watched in horror as the crossbow lowered its angle and shot her. Thwack. The bolt embedded itself just above her right knee, and Jessica shrieked as pain coursed up her body. You motherfucker. Brandon shouted. I'll kill you. The crossbow swiveled again to face Allie. Allie, don't fucking give him anything. That's what he wants. He's still going to kill us. Allie had been holding back her tears since she saw Jonas get split in half by the elevator, but then she saw the blood pouring out of Conrad's and Jessica's wounds. Something primal took hold of her. She tried to slip the cuffs off her wrists until they bruised red. No matter what she did, she couldn't get out of that chair. I'm not gonna tell you shit. Allie shouted. Never. Thwack. The crossbow bolt slammed right under her right breast, blood quickly seeped out and ran down her blouse. Ah. She tried to kick the pain away as adrenaline surged across her body. It was Brandon's turn. I don't know shit. No names, no nothing. That's the truth. If you want to torture me before you kill me, just do it already. Brandon paused, mouth agape. The orb glowed green, reflecting its colors across Brandon's face. Huh, will you look at that, I said to Oracle. One truth on the first round. We're making progress. He does not know the names. What will you do with him? Keep him on that chair for now. He may be useful once I get to Jessica. Was that relief I saw on Brandon's face? It brought his resolve a little higher, but not enough. Not when his girlfriend was still on the chopping block across from him. He cared for her genuinely, I realized. If Justin and Melanie could find love while murdering people, I reckon Brandon and Jessica could as well. I turned the crossbow toward Conrad again, and his eyes widened. Oh, fuck. Fuck, 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 he stammered, squirming in his seat. You know what to do, Conrad. But I don't know. That thing must be broken or something. Wrong answer. No, please. Thwack. The bolt smacked into his stomach and pierced right through his liver. Conrad buckled over, bile bubbled up his throat, and he retched what he ate for breakfast all over himself. The crossbow swiveled again. Jessica squirmed like Conrad did, and like Conrad, she refused to tell me the seats' names. Another bolt hit her below the stomach. Allie managed to evade the bolt by leaning quickly to the side, although she didn't get that far enough, and the bolt slammed onto her right upper arm instead. It was Brandon's turn again. I already told you. I know nothing. I know. But this question is meant for Jessica. Unlike you, she does. She knew a name, at least. And she will give it to me in exchange for your life. What? Jessica faltered. A name, Ms. Pruitt. A name for Brandon's life. But you don't know what you're asking me to do. Why? Do you fear the seat more than me? After all, I've shown you? You don't understand. I lowered my voice. Then, enlighten me. Look, they are powerful people. I've seen what they can do. They are chosen by Astaroth himself as his heralds. I can't do it. I was not impressed. Not one bit. I raised the angle of the crossbow, aiming for Brandon's face. The contraption clicked into place, making him jump from fright. Shit. Jess. Just. Baby, Jessica whimpered. Brandon watched in horror as the bolt was loaded onto the crossbow. There was no stopping it. No tears or amount of begging could stop this. Not even his girlfriend. Panic crossed his face. His own sweat drenched him. He desperately wanted to stand his ground. To say nothing and stick it up my ass. But this was something else. A primal fear he had never experienced before. An accountant rarely handled the blade and cut flesh, not like Hodge and his followers. No, Brandon Satcher was a desk pusher who masqueraded as a tough guy, built his muscles for show, and pretended to be a blue-collared guy when he was nothing but a rich prick. When death glared at you in the face, you had no choice but to run, hide, or fight. That's just human nature. Tell him, Brandon said softly. What? Jess, tell him. But, Brandon. Just. Fucking. Tell. Him. I can't. I'm sorry. I can't. Jessica. Please. I'm so sorry. Oh, fuck, it dawned on him like a barreling truck. Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Get me out of here. Oh, shit, I can't look, Conrad said and looked away, forcing his eyes shut. Brandon thrashed on his seat, waiting for the bolt to fire. He tried calculating his timing to see if he could duck just in time for the bolt to miss him. The first bolt did miss him by an inch. It hit the headrest with a loud thump, clipping him on his right earlobe and pinning him on the chair. Brandon screamed as he pulled his head back, tearing his earlobe off to free himself. But the crossbow was already loaded with the second bolt, and I didn't give him enough time to collect himself before it fired. Thwack. The bolt slammed through his left eye. Brandon let out a stifled, high-pitched croak as if a stone had lodged in his throat. He was still alive, turning his head left and right as if he could see where the bolt had landed, not knowing it was already embedded inside his skull. Then, his other eye forcibly glided to the side, the nerves losing their signals, his vision blurring. Jess, he tried to speak, but he couldn't find the words. Suddenly, the weight of his skull was too much, and he leaned forward, hoping that would help alleviate the pressure pounding at the back of his head. He stayed there forever, blood trickling out of his nostrils and his mouth. He let out one final strangled choke, an exhaled breath, and then silence. Except for everyone's screams, Jessica's, in particular. You have gained 1 essence, Brandon Satcher. You have gained 150 crystals. The crossbow swiveled again toward Conrad. And Conrad sang like a sweet fucking bird. They all did, eventually. The orb's murky green glow slowly died out, its magical properties seeping out of its core, turning it into a mundane object. Useless now, besides becoming a centerpiece. But it did the job by giving me what I wanted, and boring a hole through my wallet. I had 4 names. 4. Finally, I know who they are. Conrad gave me 2, and after the metal cuffs on his wrists unlatched, freeing him, the 2 women changed their tune. Conrad promised that the first name was a lot closer to me. The cult knew him as the Collector. Conrad insisted that he had a strong relationship with him as a courier and knew the man by his name, Richard Vishwanathan. Conrad also revealed, to my thanks, that the North American headquarters of the cult was based in New York, where the Collector would be. The second name was something he had heard from the Collector. All Conrad knew was that this person was based in Dubai and that he was called the Teeth. All 3, Allie and Jessica included, had heard rumors about him that would make Goliath blush. He was wealthy and influential enough to have the full ear of the UAE's crown prince and affect the oil market. On the other hand, Jessica gave me only one name, the blacksmith. She had dealings with him from Seoul, and Oracle confirmed that she had traveled to South Korea 8 times in the past year. She didn't know his name, but the blacksmith was the cult's weapons dealer and had plenty of connections with the East Asian governments, even funding several of the political unrests and revolutions across the continent. And Allie gave me the last name, the White Queen. She overheard Jonas talking to her during their countless nightly hookups. No real name was given, but Jonas was anxious whenever he spoke to her, and he was always mad and brought the mood down after their conversation. Allie swore that Jonas spoke to the White Queen at least once every week. I felt it was the same woman he had left a voicemail to before he died, and Oracle had traced that call to London. Since plenty of the cultists were congregating in England, she might be the big enchilada in this wild hunt I found myself in. With the brief exchange I overheard before I killed Jonas, the White Queen might have started all of this shit. She ordered my death and turned me into this, forever tethered me to this fate. The seat. I finally know who they are. Now, all I needed to do was to find them. And when I find them, well, let's just say I had plenty of ideas. Jessica's sharp yelp brought me out of my thoughts, and I focused on the furnace chamber. Jessica was sitting on the platform's cold, bare metal floor while Allie helped tend to her injuries. Can you shut her up? Conrad spat with the crossbow in his hand. He managed to pry it off the contraption to use it as a weapon, but Goliath was already gone, hiding in the shadows. I wasn't worried he would be able to incapacitate him. Not with an arrow. It'll take more than that. Do you see him? Conrad asked the others. He was afraid to leave the platform and the dim light and venture out into the far corners to look for the killer. No, he could tell that would be a death sentence. He was barely a fighter, and the only strong-looking guy in the group got mind-fucked through the eye. Strength in numbers, he probably thought. I don't, Jess, you gotta stop moving. I'm trying to pull it out, Allie said, wiping the sweat forming on her forehead. Allie was not much of a medic, and she was clearly trying to do what she saw on TV. It looked cool on TV. They didn't show how disgusting it would be, though, and pulling an arrow out of someone's flesh didn't just slip off like butter. It felt like yanking it out of a wedged rock. Jessica, lying on the ground, seized Allie's wrist before she could pull the arrow out of her knee. Don't you fucking dare, you bitch. I know it's gonna hurt. Don't. You. Dare. Jessica didn't make it to the last word when Allie yanked the bolt out of her knee, and the woman held in pain. Blood spurted out, and Allie quickly tore off her sleeves and tied it around Jessica's leg. There. You're okay. I don't see stairs, Conrad said. He pointed to the ladder. We have to get up there. I think I see a door. That might be the exit? Jessica eyed the near vertical ladder. Are you fucking kidding me? I can't climb that. Look at my leg. Conrad scowled. Then, stay here. I'm not holding your hand. You think that guy will leave us alone because we gave up the seat? That castle guy said he'll let us go if we give him names. Maybe he's not going to hurt us anymore? Jessica asked. I'll believe it once I see daylight, Conrad said. And people. Without masks. Hold on. Where did he go? Allie asked. Conrad shrugged. Fuck if I know. I don't see another door anywhere on this floor, though. Still, we can't stay on this platform. Not for long anyway. Suddenly, he bent over, clutching his stomach where a bolt was still sticking out. He refused to take it out. He realized that once he did, he would bleed out quickly. Fuck, that hurt. We really need to get that out of you, Allie said. Conrad shook his head. No. I don't want to bleed out. We might have to do a lot of running. Well, you can't run with that fucking thing inside you, dumbass. Let's just get to the ladder, please? Conrad sighed, exasperated. No, I can't, Jessica started. Please, Allie. Don't make me climb that. Jess, you have to. Or else we're going to leave you down here. You don't think I would? Allie said sternly. That guy is probably waiting for the chance to pick us off one by one. You have to come with us, okay? Easy for you to say. That ladder's our only way out. Do you not understand that? Jessica looked at the ladder again and then at Brandon, still sitting on the chair. She let out a soft whimper. Brandon. Allie frowned. I know. He's gone, Jess. We really have to move. Can you do that? Okay. I'll try. But it hurts, Allie. It really hurts. Don't worry. I'll help you. Allie wrapped Jessica's arm around her shoulder, pulling her up. Jesus, you women are slow. I'm going to the ladder, Conrad said and walked toward the ladder. Careful. The rungs are a bit dirty and slippery. I'll climb first. Wait. Can we have the crossbow? Allie asked. What for? I'll cover you while you climb up. Do you even know how to shoot this thing? What, you think I can't? Conrad held on to the weapon tighter. This stays with me. He slung it over his shoulder for good measure. Allie stared daggers at his back. Asshole, she muttered under her breath, though only Jessica could hear and nodded in agreement. She saw a pipe leaning to the side and grabbed it. Goliath watched from just behind the huge furnace, studying them intently. He didn't strike for now, and I reckoned he was waiting for them to get further up the ladder. After all, Jessica was slowing them down, and Conrad was being a dick. None of them were fighters, though, which was a good thing. Easy pickings. It was intentional that it looked rickety and unsafe, and I understood their hesitation and caution. It is all about the illusion and the atmosphere. With everything decorated, my dread effects suffused this chamber at its maximum level. In the past 4 minutes since they were freed, their resolve never rose. The exit was 48 feet up. To get to it, they had to climb 2 ladders and cross 2 narrow catwalks. The first catwalk hung 25 feet up, which Conrad just reached. The second loomed above at 40 feet. Okay. Everything looks good, he said. Allie turned to Jessica. You go first. I'll be right behind you, but we'll take this slow, okay? Jessica nodded but stayed quiet. Above, Conrad didn't wait for the women to reach the catwalk and crossed it toward the next ladder. Conrad. Wait. Allie said as Jessica lifted herself up to the 5th rung. You gotta help Jess get up there. But Conrad didn't listen. I think I can see the door. Wait up, damn it. I'll go open it and check. Don't worry. Despite his caution, Conrad was eager to get out of the chamber. He was embarrassed that he peed and puked himself throughout the entire ordeal, and once he was freed, he didn't like that the women couldn't look him in the eye. He regretted wearing lighter gray pants, and it was obvious that he had soiled himself. Even I noticed the smell. As he crossed the catwalk, he glimpsed someone standing by the steel vat and fired the crossbow at the phantom's shadow. However, he only managed to hit a pipe, which hissed steam after it was struck. Was it him? Ali shouted. Did you get him? No, I don't think so. I don't know. Save your ammo, idiot, Jessica said after she reached the 12th rung. Only 13 more to go. A little bit more, Jess. We're almost there, Ali encouraged. Jessica looked down at her doubtfully and struggled to reach the 13th rung. She paused for a couple of breaths. Back at the catwalk, Conrad loaded another bolt from his jacket's pocket, also struggling to draw the string back, taking him almost a minute just to load a bolt. He had to point the crossbow face down on the floor and use his foot for leverage. He didn't have the strength for it. Peeking out of his pockets, he only had 3 bolts left. Once the bolt was loaded, he cracked his knuckles, fingertips lined with bruised blood vessels and capillaries. His arthritis kicked in. He had to make his next shot count. I'm gonna keep going, Conrad called back. Ali nodded. Be careful. Too late. Conrad stepped onto a panel grating, and suddenly, gravity swelled, and a rush of air swallowed his legs. The panel collapsed and fell beneath him, leaving Conrad flailing for dear life. His stomach slammed onto the edge of the still intact floor ahead, but the impact broke off the bolt still sticking out of his gut. He let out a shriek, blood spurting out from his wound. He wanted to bend over to alleviate the pain, but instead, he scrambled for a handhold. Nothing. The blood, almost like oil, made it easier to slide down until, luckily, his finger slipped into the catwalk floor's hexagonal holes. It looked like he broke his pinky finger doing it. Conrad dangled 25 feet in the air with nothing but the bare, soot-ridden ground below to greet him. Shit. Shit, shit, shit. Conrad shrieked. Help. I need help. I'm coming. Ali said, trying to climb ahead of Jessica. I'm coming, Conrad. Hold on. I don't know how long I can hold. The floor panel let out a piercing creak, snapped like a twig, and gave way, swinging Conrad around like a piñata. He spun in the air, crashing close to the edge of the platform, missing it by several feet. If he had swung further, his head would have smashed onto the concrete edge, and Conrad would be screaming a different tune. A resounding snap of bone echoed across the furnace chamber. Conrad's bloodshot eyes glistened, horrified and a bit confused by what just happened. The pain quickly reminded him, and he wailed. Help! Conrad shouted. Get down here and help me. Conrad grimaced. He didn't want to look at the gaping flesh nor the snapped bone, the tibia sticking out of his leg and almost protruding out of his pants fabric, now soaked with blood. He had to reorient himself, thankful he didn't hit his head on the way down. But now he couldn't walk, and climbing the ladder in this condition would be difficult. Jessica had it easy. Worse, he dropped his crossbow, which sat on the catwalk above him. But something felt off. He didn't hear the others climbing down the ladder to help him. He didn't even hear them cry out. Looking up, Jessica and Ali gaped at him, no, at something behind him. And that was when he noticed the shadow cast by the furnace looming at his right side. A deep, muffled, cold breath echoed from behind, and Conrad slowly turned around to look over his shoulder and saw Goliath standing over him. Goliath raised his axe. Conrad took a deep breath and closed his eyes for the inevitable. Climb! Ali screamed at Jessica from the top of the ladder. Below, Goliath hacked through Conrad's body. He managed to let out a shriek before the blade sliced through his collarbone at a slight angle and chopped off his vocal cords. He was still alive by the 4th hack, and Goliath was careful not to hit his head. He needed him alive to experience the precious, repulsive few seconds of pain and terror. Look what I am doing to you, to your body, and you can't do anything about it, Goliath tried to say. You have gained 1 essence, Conrad Crespo. You have gained 150 crystals. Goliath admired his handiwork for a few seconds to catch his breath. He gazed up at the catwalk, where Ali and Jessica shimmied around the missing floor by grabbing the railings and crossing the catwalk toward the second ladder. He searched Conrad's jacket and picked up the 3 crossbow bolts, placing them in his own pocket, and then walked toward the first ladder. Ali snatched the crossbow from the floor and looked down the hole. Oh, no. He's climbing up. Quick. Shoot him. Jessica screeched. Allie stood against the railings and aimed at the hulking figure climbing fast up the ladder. One bolt left, and she had to make this one count. They didn't see Goliath picking up Conrad's remaining ammo. "What are you waiting for? Just shoot him," Jessica said. "I can't get the angle." "Allie, he's almost up. He's too fast. Shoot him already before he gets to us." Allie panicked and pulled the trigger. The bolt flew through the air, hurtling toward Goliath. But Goliath barely ducked, stared at the women, and caught the bolt midair before it could hit him through the eye. Allie and Jessica gasped, horrified, as Goliath snapped the bolt with his thumb and curled fist and threw the wooden bits off to the side. Then, the masked behemoth lifted himself up to the catwalk landing. Like a cat playing with their food, Goliath took this moment slowly. He sauntered toward the panicking women like a stalking lion, as if he knew there was no way out. No escapes. No amount of begging would make him think otherwise. He left the axe lodged in Conrad's body below, but he was high enough that he'd use gravity to do the job for him. He still had his hunting knife sheathed on his belt, but he only used that for special occasions or during emergencies. Meanwhile, Allie and Jessica scrambled to climb the second ladder, especially Jessica. Allie's makeshift bandages around Jessica's wound were not helping, and she was slowly bleeding out, making her weaker and paler. She only made it halfway through before she realized Goliath had reached the bottom rung and was watching up at her curiously. "Get away!" Allie shouted and threw the crossbow down at him. Goliath caught it again midair and slung it around his shoulder. He began to climb. "Jess, keep moving. He's below you." "I can't." "Oh, I can't, Allie." Jessica clung to the ladder, frozen in fear. "Move. You have to move." Allie finally reached the top of the ladder, bent down, and reached for Jessica's hand. "You're almost there, Jess. Take my hand." "I can't." "Take my hand. Reach. You can do it." "I can't." "Reach." "Ah!" Jessica shrieked. Goliath seized her ankle and yanked her down, but the woman managed to hold on to the ladder by looping her arms around the rung. "Get off. Get off of me. Jess." Allie watched in horror as Jessica fought for her life. Jessica's grip was getting weaker. She barely had seconds of adrenaline to go in the tank, and she couldn't hold on to that ladder forever. Goliath climbed another rung higher just to reach her better, wrapping his big hand around her wounded knee and sinking his thumb through her gaping flesh. Jessica let out another high-pitched cry, loosening her grasp on the rung. And that was enough leverage for Goliath to grab her ankle again and yank her down. She missed the catwalk below. It would have saved her if she did, but Goliath yanked and swung her in the direction of the furnace, and Jessica fell to the ground on her back next to Conrad's chopped-up body. She was still alive from the 40-foot fall, but it had severed her spine, and she couldn't move. Goliath could tell as well, and instead of going down to finish the job, he turned his fiery gaze to the last woman standing. Allie looked down at Jessica prone, eyes glistening with regret and guilt. She had no other choice. So, she scrambled to her feet and ran across the catwalk toward the exit door. I reckoned she only had 15 seconds left before Goliath was on her. I got lucky that she tripped midway through in her panic, losing precious seconds of her escape. She got back to her feet, pushing every strength she had to get there, extending her hand out for the door, and thwack! The crossbow bolt slammed through the nape of her neck and out of her throat. Allie crumpled to the floor, thrashing and choking. She grasped the sharp edge of the bolt protruding out of her neck, trying to rationalize her fate. She was on the floor, and the door was right fucking there. She reached out for the handle but couldn't find the strength to get up and grasp it. Goliath towered above her, head tilted to the side as if studying her pain and anguish. He discarded the crossbow to the side. Allie let out another gurgled croak, trying to breathe through her nose, but snot and blood blocked it. She was drowning in her own blood. Goliath seized her by the armpits and heaved her over the railing. Bones and flesh crunched and squelched as she landed right next to Jessica, blood and brain matter splattering all over the prone woman's face. Jessica couldn't move nor scream, paralyzed from the neck down. All she could do was watch Goliath climb back down the ladder toward her. "You have gained 1 essence, Allie Collins. You have gained 150 crystals." "Gravity kills," Oracle said nonchalantly. "Or maybe not. It was tough to tell the emotions of a computer, okay?" Plus, he hardly made off-the-cuff comments when a Delver died, letting Demon do all the commentary work instead. I turned to look at the computer with a curious gaze. Did you just make a joke? If it was, Demon would be proud. It took Oracle a moment to reply. I am stating a fact, he said. I kept my gaze on him a bit longer. I don't mind if you joke around a bit, Oracle. You're always so serious. Oracle did not respond. To be fair, a lot of people have fallen to their deaths today, especially the 22 cultists on the plane. Oracle updated me that it was massive news across dozens of channels, and social media was blowing up with various videos from the hikers on the ground and the commuters along I-84. The current assumption was that it was some kind of terrorist attack. As I said before, planes didn't randomly explode in the sky, and the FAA would take months of investigation to determine the cause. For the next 10 minutes, Goliath dragged the bodies, and body parts, of the Delvers and threw them into the furnace. But before he could drag Jessica to the oven next to her boyfriend, Demon's shadow lingered above her body. Goliath waited and folded his arms. He seemed to acknowledge something unsaid between them with a slow, deliberate nod. Then, Demon slipped inside Jessica through her mouth and nostrils. Her eyes shot open a heartbeat later, and the once familiar blue irises blazed with an unnatural, molten golden hue. Jessica got up and stretched, and her wounds gradually healed, leaving only scars. You had to thank infernal healing for that, and most fiends possessed them. This new body has spice, Demon said, stretching her spine. I never really asked. How long can you inhabit that body? It might take weeks until the next delve. Indefinitely, she said. Although, if I possessed a human for more than 2 weeks and I leave their flesh voluntarily or forced out of it, they just die from a heart attack or a stroke. Good to know. Need help, Goldie? Demon asked Goliath. Goliath chucked Conrad's arm inside the oven and shook his head. Then, he walked toward the wall's control panel and turned the oven on. And there they are, the cultists burnt to a crisp. But I got my essence and didn't mind that it's overbaked. Goliath approached one of my many eyes, waiting for orders. Was that fun? I asked him. Goliath glanced at the furnace and shrugged. I chuckled. I promise to give you a longer hunt next time. Maybe with several delvers. I'm sorry, but we had to get rid of these cultists fast. He raised all 10 of his fingers. 10 delvers? You think you can handle that many on your own? Demon asked. I mean, I can. Possess 3 bodies, divide and conquer, and win the night. He gave me 2 thumbs up. I always appreciate your confidence, Goliath, I said. Me, too, Demon said. Oh, bad news, my liege. I am rifling through Jessica's memories. She had no recollection of the blacksmith's face. She was just talking to one of his emissaries. Another lawyer, she thinks. Also, do you know she is allergic to olives and shellfish? This body sucks. Do you have a name for this emissary? Demon nodded. Kim Minjun. It could be an alias. A handsome fellow. They've met 5 times, and she was thinking of fucking him on several occasions. Oracle, can you find anything about that guy? I'll see what I can find through the internet, but South Korea is so far away. They are not within my borders. My eyes are limited. Don't worry about it. Just do your best, I said. The Imran Guild has rewarded you 10,000 crystals. You may use it at your own convenience. And there it is. Huh. True to their word, I said. Indeed, Demon said. Maybe a part of me doubted Elvis's promises, but I must admit, he got me there. I imagined hundreds of administrators cheering for the Delvers' deaths a few moments ago, and I didn't know if I should be sickened or proud of it. A part of me enjoyed what I was doing to these cultists. I had no sympathy for them. But what if it was one of the hikers nearby? I shuddered just thinking about it. Looking at my core tab, this reward would bring me up to a total of 26,000 crystals, plus change. My essence total brought it to 31. Jessica's essence hadn't been collected yet. North Cedar Lake. Dread level, 6/10, new dungeon, plus, bloodthirsty core, plus, massive domain, plus, massacre site, plus. Crystals, 26,150. Essence, 31. New York City is the headquarters of the Collector, Oracle reminded me. I've never thought about the logistics of creating a dungeon inside an urban hellscape, I said. Do you think building one in the middle of a city is a good idea? New York City has a population of 7 million potential delvers above the age of 15. We wouldn't run out of potential delvers, Demon said. But it will make our anonymity difficult to manage. I'm not planning on feeding on 7 million people. That's not happening. Oracle and Demon said nothing. I am not killing that many people. Besides, a delve like that would require wiping them out before dawn. But if I have to do it, I can summon an archetype like, no. Focus. This is not the time. I ignored the logistics for now. I looked at Oracle's screen of the security feed at the Evergreen Medical Center. Danny and Tessa were still unconscious, tended to by Dr. Calloway and several nurses. I had plenty of time to plan my next move and expand my territory before they woke up. We know our targets now, I said to each one of my archetypes across my domain. Our focus is to grow. I sent them a convincing message not to fuck with me again, but the next time we see them, they'll be ready for us, so we have to be ready as well. I can perform a background check on Richard Vishwanathan and prepare a report for you by the end of the day. Warning, New York is not within my borders. I am limited in my ability to find anything about him. The likelihood of his online footprint is significantly reduced. If we are dealing with people like him, they would have covered their tracks and scrubbed off any evidence that they exist, Demon interjected. Thank you, Oracle. He's our prime target. Once we have him, we'll know the identities of the other three, but it's a long journey to New York. I will build the second dungeon in the city. I waited for the others to oppose such a risky plan and the second dungeon's location. Old Growth was the only one reluctant to go for it, but I told him Central Park could be a potential home. There were plenty of parks in the city, too. Having multiple dungeons was like having a massive teleportation gateway. I couldn't teleport the cabin and the lake in the middle of the city, but my archetypes could freely move between the two locations. I could do that as well. Both dungeons shared the same dread and stats. After all, it was still me, just another extended body part or an organ. If I wanted to make them have different auras, I had to manually purchase the traits. Other than Oldie's reluctance to be a plant monster in an urban jungle, Demon, Goliath, and Oracle liked the plan because they had more territories and hunting grounds to explore. However, Siren loved it. The rivers and the bay were nearby. She had plenty of water to cover on the surface and under the city. She also reminded me that sirens could easily navigate the city's sewer systems. North Cedar Lake and the underwater cave system were a kiddie pool to her. 463 essences. It might take us a couple of years, maybe 3, to collect that amount without raising any suspicions. Oracle, can you also find out anything about the Institute? Jessica mentioned it earlier. It didn't sound like they are part of the cult, but I want to know if they are dangerous or if we should keep an eye on them. I will, Lord Dungeon. We had a plan. It might not be concrete right now, but at least I had given my archetypes a goal to hit, at the expense of murdering 463 delvers. But today, I needed to focus on growing myself and increasing my power. I needed to build my arsenal so that by the time I created the second dungeon, my armies would march through the portal and destroy the Collector's men and anyone who dared oppose me. No doubt a person like him had better security than Jonas and Hodge. Maybe even better magic if what Conrad said was true, that the members of the seat were favored by Astaroth himself. I had to assume that they possessed infernal magic and protections. I can't take any chances. I regarded the others again. I think it's time for an upgrade, don't you think? I opened the Monsters tab on the menu and selected each of my archetype's 4th traits. For the next 2 days, I scoured through the massive list of traits for my monsters. Since I only had 1 slot to fill for each of them, I had to make it count. This would be a part of them for a long time until I could unlock the 5th trait. Once I was ready, I gathered the others by the boathouse. It wasn't a good idea for them to walk inside the cabin now that we'd set up the fake crime scene for the cops to find later. Plus, spending more crystals to clean up any of their messes was a waste of resources. So, the lake it is. I could feel their excitement. Today, they were going to receive some much-needed upgrades on their traits, plus a 4th additional trait, as promised. From creation, each archetype started with 3 monster traits that defined their features, attacks, and defensive capabilities, among others. Now that an administrator, and a guild, had sponsored me, they were kind enough to let me know that I could unlock 9 additional traits in the future by either purchasing them with crystals and essence or by completing a hidden system quest. The latter I got when I completed my first official scenario and killed the cultists the system desperately wanted dead. A stacked and fully upgraded archetype would have a total of 12 traits, upgraded to the maximum level of 12 each, which would also cost more crystals and essence. How many do I need for that? At least 700 essences spent on one archetype by the end? I hated math in high school and barely made a passing grade in geometry. Fortunately, I had Oracle, my super calculator. Obviously, I didn't have enough crystals to completely upgrade their sheets today, but I was determined to give each of them their 4th trait. After the work they've done helping me in the past week, it's only fair I returned the favor. Buying a 4th trait would cost 5 essences and 1,000 crystals per archetype. Lucky for me, these traits came for free when I completed the system's hidden quest, or else this would be such a freaking expensive endeavor that would bankrupt me. It's not even worth it. But free is nice. Free is good. When I opened the Monster tab from the menu, everyone immediately felt my presence in the system. Goliath straightened his back and stood in attention, and Demon's body, now possessing Jessica, steamed with smoke, which fired all sorts of bright flashes of hellfire. Siren even stopped brushing her hair and sang a soft, soulful hymn on the rock she sat on. Little white daisies bloomed all over Old Growth's body, trembling with anticipation. Nodding, I opened Goliath's archetype sheet first. I had thought about giving him this trait from the beginning, but it didn't make the cut as his starting trait. Now, he can finally have it, I thought. I was extremely lucky that he already had experience as a fighter due to his background as a Marine, although I didn't really believe it was all luck. As a deathcore, I attracted killers, sinners, and murderers to my domain with unusual frequency. Like I was a magnet or something. Why wouldn't the system choose Andy to be the Goliath? Like calls to like, after all. For his 4th trait, I wanted something that would elevate his skills as a killer and a hunter, making him a formidable force to be reckoned with during a delving night. I hoped. Expert Hunter I. The monster has expert mastery in their hunting skills, adaptability, and techniques for three types of creatures. Selected, humanoids, demonic, beasts. They can automatically sense the presence of the selected creatures within a 5-mile radius and track them with extreme accuracy, intuitively perceive their prey's weaknesses, and exploit their fears. They also apply the appropriate hunting and tracking skills to gain advantage in two terrains. Selected, forest, urban. This is a passive trait. Humanoids and beasts made sense, given the planet we were on, but I selected demonic for the 3rd creature type. Maybe not soon, but I felt I would be dealing with Astaroth's forces in the future the more I chased after the cult across the globe. No doubt the Devil Prince was super fucking pissed. I killed many of his followers and made him lose a foothold on Earth. Who wouldn't be? After all the hard work he had done? Well, that's what you get for murdering me, asshole. And besides, the members of the seat were technically fiend adjacent. They might have other fiends serving under them. They got their powers from a prime infernal source, a high prince of hell. I already knew demons existed. Who knew how many demonic forces were roaming on Earth that didn't work for the seat? They might strike tomorrow or far in the future, so it was best if I covered all my bases now rather than wait for the shoe to drop later. But if they ever get within 5 miles of my dungeon, Goliath would sniff them out like a bloodhound, and I would be ready for them. His chosen terrain was self-explanatory. We lived in the woods, and there were several mid-sized towns nearby for him to explore if he liked. New York was in the books, and Portland was on the horizon. Goliath gave me a hearty 2 thumbs up. When it came to honing and improving skills, he would be the guy who would appreciate it more. Men like him strived to be the best, to keep going until nothing was left. I closed Goliath's sheet and opened Siren's. Her 4th trait was easier to settle on, especially after what Demon had said about sirens and how, in other worlds, they were considered social, albeit predatory creatures. Sure, they formed communities around hunting and luring sailors to their deaths, but such creatures could still get lonely when isolated for too long. Siren had been alone for a week, and though I didn't hear her complain, I could tell she yearned for a pot of her own. Without the dungeon and the system, Siren would have run away long ago looking for her kind or withered away in the deepest depths of the ocean without a pod and died of loneliness. Do sirens even exist on Earth? I asked Siren about that, and she wasn't sure. It's not like she had an antenna to sense her kin across the entire freaking planet. I reckon that's a big fat maybe. Human cultures had plenty to say about sirens, both scary, the romantic, and the Little Mermaid version. Did the sirens exist in the past, only hunted to extinction? Without proof, I assumed she was the last of her kind on this planet. I'm going to change that, I thought. Pot of sirens. The monster hunts in a maximum pot of 4. Their hunting tactics and intelligence increase when in proximity with the same creature type, increasing dread and rapidly lowering a delver's resolve when faced with two or more monsters at once. When hunting in a pod, the monster's endurance and regenerative properties increase. The lake surface shuddered, the slightest tremble beneath the earth, the low echoing boom of a gong or cannon in the distance, always heralding an archetype's arrival. In this case, multiple archetypes. The price for making Siren's life on Earth comfortable cost me 3 essences for summoning 3 additional sirens, forming her pod. Fortunately, it didn't eat up my dungeon archetype limit since these 3 new arrivals shared the same abilities as the original siren. Their tails gently licked above the water's surface as they swam closer toward the shore. Siren let out the brightest smile and sang a high-pitched, vibrant note, her voice filling the lake with an amorous embrace. 3 voices sang after her, matching her song of greeting, their heads barely bobbing up and down from the water. Like all sirens, they had the upper body of a strikingly beautiful woman and the tail of a fish. One had bright blonde hair, the other had copper-red hair, and the last was almost bald. Siren jumped off the rock she was sitting on and swam to the others. Demon rolled her eyes. Oh, great. Now, there are 4. How am I going to sleep with them singing all night? You don't sleep, I reminded her. Even when she was possessing a body, the demon never slept. But Goliath does. Goliath gave her a slight, careless shrug. See? He doesn't mind, I said. I suppose so, Demon sighed. But what are we going to call them? I'm not calling all of them Siren. She was right about that. They couldn't all be Siren. You know, I never really asked. Do you all have names you went by before I summoned you? Before I made names for you? I asked the entire group. A devil's true name is never uttered, Demon said. But I was known by many names. Ugly names I care not to repeat. You may call me whatever you like, my liege. Goliath matched my stern gaze, so I guessed he didn't want to be addressed by his old name. Fine, I'll respect that. The sirens, to my surprise, had no need for verbal names. They communicated through song and recognized other sirens based on their frequency and vibrations in the water, like dolphins or whales, by whistling or clicking. I pointed at the original siren to make it easier on myself and the others. You will be Penelope, I said, and she nodded and flashed me a demure smile. I pointed at the blonde one with the high cheekbones and a narrow but strong jawline. You are Scylla. I pointed at the redhead with the curly shoulder-length hair and pale, freckled skin. Circe. And then I regarded the tallest of the sirens, closely shaved head with bright emerald eyes, straight shoulders, and dark skin as midnight. And Calypso. Demon folded her arms and smirked. And who are you, my lord? Odysseus? The bastard Poseidon, most likely, I mused, but I didn't answer her. I regarded the sirens again to see if they agreed with their names. I doubted they'd object since they followed my word without question or hesitation. If these were the names they were given, then it shall be. Unless you have other preferences? I asked just to be polite. The sirens shook their heads and agreed to their new names. However, they didn't seem to care much for it since they were more enthused with each other's company, swimming and leaping out of the water and playing games like dolphins and Orcus would. Demon immediately raised her hand. Oh, me next. I'm ready. I stifled a laugh and opened Demon's archetype sheet. Someone's impatient. Demon had been one of my strongest archetypes from the beginning, possibly the strongest. Even though Oracle had the highest dread score of 9 amongst my archetypes, he lacked direct offensive capabilities and was limited to only affecting electronics and machinery. Most of the time, I used him as a spying tool to eliminate any threats outside my borders. By doing that, I missed out on a lot of essence. On a delve, he could only jam any outgoing or incoming communications and stop the delvers from escaping my dungeon. On the other hand, Demon was nigh unstoppable every delve due to the fiend's passive limited immortality. Pretty much the only way to defeat them was through an exorcism, by gaining a strong will to prevent possession or having enough magical powers to drive them out and eradicate them. Angelic archetypes also shared such features. Earth humans were not built like that. As long as there were no priests or a strong-willed devout person in a delving party, demon would dominate the dungeon, especially when they could now possess a maximum of 3 delvers to fuck with them. So, I invested in making them into a true nightmare of the night. Flesh Puppeteer I. For a limited time, the monster can possess, control, and manipulate multiple defiled and severed flesh and body parts within the dungeon. It doesn't have to be an intact body. They can generate physiological and biological changes of any shape and form to create a hybrid out of flesh by growing extra limbs, rows of teeth, multiple eyes, etc. This will negatively affect a delver's resolve when within line of sight of a mutated flesh. This is a possession trait, and it counts toward the limited possessions this monster can have at the same time. They do not have total concealment and can be dispatched by physical means and dismemberment. Duration, 1 hour. Demon giggled. What are the chances? Back in hell, I'm known by my colleagues as a flesh artist. Really? What does that look like? I asked and immediately regretted asking her the moment the words left my mouth. Same old, same old. I dismembered and stitched together odd body parts from other animals to sinners as their eternal punishment and then made them run and dance with them. We do that to the murderers and psychopaths. My favorite is adding a wolf's snout on the belly. Or tentacles for legs. Yes, the last one's my favorite. It's so funny watching them run with it. Like a toddler trying to walk on a bouncing castle. Much to Demon's amusement, I tried to get the mental image out of my head. Ah, do not worry, Lord Dungeon. I will put this ability to good use. Not the fun stuff. Practical, but bloody, use. That, I do not doubt, I thought. Over the sea of evergreen, the sun was slowly sinking into the sunset on the horizon. I opened Old Growth's sheet next. I noted his concerns about blending with the environment earlier, and it made me wonder if I could find an ability to help him with it. Most of his traits were used for offense. To make him faster and stronger. Be able to chase down a delver at frightening speed. Shoot javelins from his appendages. Tear and claw a delver limb from limb. But I hadn't given him anything to protect himself besides running away from danger and hoping for the best. I wanted something he could use to defend himself and as a hunting tactic. When he stalked Tessa and Clay around the junkyard last night, his natural plant-like body blended with the forest canopy, giving me an idea. Maybe I could give him something like that, which he could apply to anywhere else, even in a heavily populated city like New York. Terrain mimicry I. The monster can blend into the selected surroundings with perfect accuracy in texture, lighting, and coloration to avoid direct sensory perception, and making them invisible to the naked eye. They are not immune to other various means of sight, body heat sensors, night vision, divination magic, etc. When the camouflage effects are activated, the monster is slowed to half its speed. Select 3 terrains, forest, mountain, urban. Old Growth's legs began to turn translucent and eventually merged with the weathered stones littered across the lakeshore. He snapped it back to his old form, nodding appreciatively. I guess he liked that. Remind me not to play hide-and-seek with him, Demon said. The sirens all laughed from the water. Spurred by the attention, Old Growth dipped his claws into the water, and the sirens giggled some more, amused and in awe as they watched his body blend underwater, becoming part of the lake. You couldn't really spot the difference unless you were really looking or if you were standing at the right angle. It was pretty trippy. And it works underwater, too, Demon said. Impressive. No more hide-and-seek. Goliath crossed his arms and chuckled. I didn't know Goliath could laugh or that he had it in him, but I was glad to see it. And finally, I turned my attention to Oracle. Saved the best for last, my dude behind the desk, I said. Demon clapped excitedly. I already mentioned that Oracle was missing physical offensive capabilities, something he could use while inside the dungeon, so it was a no-brainer to give him a weapon of his own, one where he could not just attack but cause fear. Nanite Swarm I. The monster can create, shape, and manipulate tiny robotic materials the size of an anemometer. The swarm can hover and fly. It is large enough to shape a medium-sized humanoid form and has the strength and agility of an average humanoid. These nanites have weapons, selected, razor-sharp pincers. Since they are advanced computers, they gain one unique tech ability, selected, illusory reality. They can produce near-realistic virtual reality through holograms against one Delver, acting like a mage's illusion spell. A Delver with a high resolve increases the chance of this illusion being broken. However, they are susceptible to technological countermeasures to disable or stun them. A high-resolve Delver can aid in breaking out a low-resolve Delver from an illusion. Oracle would no longer be trapped inside a computer and limited by its space, but he could explore North Cedar Lake and beyond with his brand new form. With it, he could protect himself better. Who knows? He could participate during the delves and hunt the other Delvers. Now that Oracle could freely move physically, the radius for his other traits also moved with him. Because he could fly, I could send Oracle to New York, scout the city ahead, and try to find the collector himself. But it's such a risky plan without a backup that I'd be a fucking idiot to go through with it. I might send him there once he was stronger if more of his traits were upgraded, or when I am confident that he could take care of himself. I am a patient man. And the one thing why I wanted him to have this trait was that, together with Demon, they would be great infiltrators and even better spies. Nanites were small enough to latch onto someone's clothes and listen to conversations. I could spread it out and spy on multiple people beyond my borders. The boathouse door opened, and a humanoid shape emerged from within, looking like a bunch of ants were swarming their body. It had no face, just a blank swarming feature except for hollowed eye sockets and a hint of cheekbones. Demon and Goliath almost leaped into action, ready to cut him into pieces, when the shape raised his hands and shouted in a panic, "It's me. Oracle," he said through a voice modulator emanating from the swarm. "Oracle?" Demon laughed. "Is that really you?" "Yes," he asked questioningly, confused about what Demon found so funny. "A portable computer swarm. That is always convenient to have. I have downloaded several videos mimicking human emotions, mostly from several clips of soap operas and Oscar-winning movies. This should help me blend better with the nearby human population if you want me to further spy on Point Hope and keep an eye on Danny and Tessa," Oracle said. "You want to do that?" I asked. Oracle tilted his head. "Since I was given an illusory trait, I can turn this body into a near replica of a human. I thought that is why you gave me this trait." "Oh. No, not just that. I guess I didn't want to leave you out whenever the others are hunting." "Oh." Oracle lowered his head. "In any case, I can already see several applicable parameters. But I will need more assessments. More tweaks before I am ready." "Heh. Well, it beats reading the screen all the time. Now I can finally talk to you, face to face?" "Quite right, my Lord Dungeon. Can this swarm even fight?" Demon asked. If looks could kill, Oracle would have cut Demon into ribbons. Instead, he strode over to Goliath and extended his palm out. "May I?" He pointed at the knife sheathed on Goliath's belt. Goliath raised an eyebrow, but he surprisingly handed the knife to him a beat later. Oracle didn't waste any time twirling the blade around his hand and threw it against the nearby tree. The knife slammed into the bark with such force that it shook the canopy. Several birds nesting above scrambled to fly away, disturbed by the sudden violent vibration. Then, his hand disintegrated into a cloud of black grain, hurtling toward the tree. Using the nanite's pincers, he ate through the thick wood, cutting and felling the tree in half in under 40 seconds. Once the tree had fallen, Oracle turned to face us. "This swarm will do." Demon cackled and clapped while Goliath marched toward the fallen knife and picked it up. He glared at Oracle, but his eyes quickly softened. Even he appreciated the display of power. Above us, dusk began to settle in the sky. Now, all I had to do was sit back and watch the others practice their new skills and talents. But Demon turned to me. "Didn't the system also bequeath you with new toys, my lord? What have you decided?" "Right. Shit, I almost forgot," I said. I was so focused on getting the others their traits that I didn't even bother checking mine. "You all enjoy your night now. I doubted there would be a delve tonight, and I don't sense anyone nearby." I glimpsed Goliath, nodding his head and agreeing with me. While the others approached the edge of the dock to introduce themselves to the new sirens, I was busy looking over my long list of options to upgrade my core. I looked over the list of environmental auras for North Cedar Lake. Due to how open my dungeon's borders were to the outside world, I wanted to reduce the chances of escape like Leo did a few nights ago. I didn't want to block off their exit completely but instead made it harder to traverse the forest the closer they were to the border. Disorienting overgrowth. The woods are not a delver's friend. Once triggered, thick overgrowth of trees and vegetation materializes around the dungeon's borders, making it harder to find the path to a true exit. You may designate one true exit for each delve that the delvers must follow to leave your dungeon. If a delver has a low resolve and fails to increase their willpower, they will be turned around and return at the heart of your domain. Selected, the cabin. Duration, until dawn. My intentions weren't to be cruel by limiting how the delvers leave my domain but to add a cryptic puzzle. I planned to leave little clues scattered around the cabin and across the property on how to exit my domain if they couldn't last until dawn. These could be from creepy paintings, old found footage from VHS tapes, journals from fake delvers who fell victim to my monsters, a nursery rhyme that the sirens could compose, or urban legends I could disseminate in Point Hope and the other nearby towns. But if I had delvers I really wanted dead, like the cult, then they're out of luck. Of course, the actual exit wouldn't be the same for all the delves. Instead of acquiring another skill, I improved my telekinesis to prolong its active state and power. Now, I could levitate and move creatures and objects of 800 pounds for 4 minutes instead of 1. Heat Surge also got updated, which gave me the option to blow the hand, or pockets, of the delver that grabbed me into bloody bits. Like a concentrated mini grenade, I mused. They wouldn't have a fun time after that. But I wasn't done. Now that I was legitimized by the system as a true deathcore, and not get eaten by the administrators as junk food, discarded by the system, a new tab opened in my core, the deathcore traits. After reading through it, I realized that all cores were just like archetypes upon their creation. We come from the same god, or mother, after all. Like the archetypes, each core received 3 starting traits of their choosing that were unique to a deathcore only. Although the list wasn't as robust as theirs, plenty caught my eye and might be very useful in the future. After an hour of searching, I narrowed it down to these 2 traits. Control weather. You can summon, shape, and manipulate the weather on both small and larger scales across a radius of 100 miles. You can also sense and manipulate changes in air pressure, temperature, and humidity, which enables you to control the intensity of the weather. Due to your planet's weather cycle, you can control the wind, call lightning and thunder, and shape water. As a deathcore trait, this negates resolve requirement. Cost, 10 power. Duration, 1 to 24 hours. Arcane resistance. You have a passive resistance to all arcane disciplines, spells, influence, and energy damage. You are resistant to all scrying magic and divine interventions, and alert you of such effects. You also have a higher chance to negate or counter powerful spells that target you, even dissipating them completely ineffective at the cost of 10 power per counter. Fractal omniscience. You can meld with the minds of all the potential delvers within your domain and those within 100 miles of your dungeon. You must be familiar with their name and exact location. You can read their thoughts, experience their desires, glimpse their memories, and feel their pain, fears, and suffering. You can focus on multiple delvers all at once without a limit. This trait does not allow telepathic communication. As a deathcore trait, this negates resolve requirement. Cost, 10 power. Duration, 1 to 24 hours. Elvis wasn't kidding when he mentioned how dangerous deathcores were. I could see why. Although it ate up a lot of power to channel them, their duration and net of influence were massive, especially when I didn't have to wait for a delver's resolve to go down for my abilities to affect them. The smart thing to do was to start small. Other than the cult of Astaroth, I wanted to be incognito to the rest of the world. At least while I was just starting out. Choosing an ability that could induce a city's entire population into sleep paralysis and slowly succumb to dehydration or summon a tidal wave of shadows that would rend flesh down to the bone like piranhas was not very useful nor practical. In battle, yes, but it's limited to only that. It would also attract too much unwanted attention. I had no plans of destroying Earth and plunging the planet into the apocalypse. I can't have that. I live here. My family still lives here. I went for manipulating the weather instead. It's quite practical and has a lot of applications. Just creating a downpour passively improved the dread effects of my domain. Let's call it set dressing or mood setting. A blizzard could trap delvers in one location and limit their movement. An atmospheric storm could also cut them off from the rest of civilization for the night. If I didn't want anyone near my dungeon, I could summon a flash flood or an ice storm to deter them from going anywhere near my borders. Perhaps I'd learn more once I get enough practice. Arcane resistance was a no-brainer. I was already uneasy that the administrators were watching my every move. But what if the seat had scrying abilities of their own? Well, I couldn't have them snooping around my domain. No fucking way. Unfortunately, the system wouldn't allow me to be immune to all forms of magic. I kept forgetting that one of the Delver's primary goals was to destroy me to win the dungeon, and get all the loot. Favored or not, the system wouldn't bat an eye if I died. I am still fair game in the grand scheme of things. As for reading minds, I could read everyone like a book. Secrets. Desires. Ambition. Fears. The chapters of their lives unraveled before me. I didn't pick it up because I wanted to be Professor Xavier. Okay, it's a little bit of that, but no one would be a stranger to me. I would be familiar with their lives and memories as if I lived them myself. I had difficulty giving Leo and Tessa their reward, and I was still unsatisfied with what I gave them. With this, I would already know. Not what they wanted but what they needed. Why read minds? Demon asked me once she felt the changes in my domain. It took me a moment to answer. I already knew my reasons, yes, but the practical ones. Look, I'm not an idiot. I'm perfectly aware that the human part of me was slowly fading away since I woke up in that dark glade, singing blades soaked with my blood. Maybe this was a slim chance, to keep my humanity alive within me, albeit through some fucked up voyeuristic lens. To remind myself who I was feeding on. These are people, and they have lives. Like I did. I couldn't sustain myself with just the cult alone, I had to go for real, ordinary people, too. 463 Delvers. 463 memories, thoughts, and experiences. I had to honor that in some way. Even if they perished within my dungeon, their memories would live on somewhere deep within my consciousness. I liked that. It made everything bearable, even for a tiny bit. So, I answered, to see who they really are? Maybe I want to understand their true selves. Not who they present to be on the outside, you know? Even when they don't know it, I'll know. Not many people get that. And I'll judge. Of course, I'll judge. Then, carry out the sentence and execute it, blood, bones, and all. But I didn't say the last part out loud. Demon left it at that, satisfied. If only I knew what Leo went through to be the man I saw last night. To understand how Tessa became resourceful when she barely left Point Hope, the typical sheltered princess of her wealthy adoring family. I wanted to understand them in some way. Perhaps I could also understand why Justin Hodge chose me as his sacrifice. What they all saw in me made them say, that's the boy fit to become a deathcore. That's the boy who can endure the change. Well, it was too late now. Most of them were dead or were far away and gone. I floated in the air and headed toward the cabin. Follow me, I said to the others. Demon and Goliath were the first to walk up the trail, followed by the sirens, their tails slowly turning into human legs and feet. Water crept up and enveloped their naked bodies, which transformed into beautiful silk robes with flowery patterns. Oracle's nanite humanoid form and old growth trailed behind last. They gathered in front of the cabin in a semicircle. I reminded them of the exciting news that I had 2 archetype slots available and would fill them in tonight. They waited patiently, of course, as I finished creating them. But once I finalized their starting traits, I didn't waste another second to summon them. The cannon echoed in the distance, heralding their arrival. We waited again. A minute passed, and I thought I had messed something up during the selection process. I was about to open the menu tab to double-check my work when headlights from a truck appeared on the gravel road ahead, coming straight toward the cabin. The others and I froze, curious and yet alert. New Delvers? This soon? No, the cops hadn't even found the cultists yet. Danny and Tessa were still unconscious. Except for Leo, no one knew this place existed. And it couldn't be Leo. I would have felt his presence 100 miles away if he touched down at the airport. For a second there, I thought he was really going to delve again. To destroy me, this time. I couldn't help but be proud of him. But no. I sensed a different presence within the approaching vehicle. Friends were coming. The old, beaten-up F-250 Ford truck stopped about 30 feet from us. 3 men climbed out of the vehicle and approached, 3 pairs of eyes studying us carefully like wolves assessing their prey. Once their gaze landed on me, they couldn't look away. Their fixation turned into a deep bow, heads down, knees bent, paying their respects to their new master. They didn't get up until I told them to. I presumed they were all brothers since the three men looked almost identical, tall, dark-haired, brown-eyed, brawny arms and chests. They wore flannel shirts, dark jeans, and leather boots, although the youngest of the three was the only one wearing a tank top underneath his unbuttoned flannel shirt. Contrary to the creations of all my archetypes, I didn't know everything about them from the start, especially their names or where they came from. I wasn't privy to how the system collected them and bound them to my service as a dungeon monster. I had to ask. Who are you? I already knew they could answer me since I had given them speech. The oldest of the three spoke. My name is Alan, my lord. Alan Sawyer, he said. When he called me, I noticed my lord was still strange in his tongue. And these are my brothers, Garth and Luke. He pointed to the man wearing a Chicago Cubs baseball cap next to him, who was an inch or two taller, and then to the man with the tank top, who sported a cheeky grin. Once my gaze landed on the two of them, the youngest, Luke, dropped the grin. Perhaps he thought he shouldn't risk offending me. The Sawyers. It's good to meet you all, I said. Where are you from? It took Alan a moment to answer. We are from nowhere, but from what I know, this is where we shit now. I blinked. That's colorful. With how you all are dressed, you must be from around here. Earth. Jackson, Alan said. Idaho? Alan nodded. And you drove all the way from there? It was Luke who answered this time, shaking his head. A glowing portal thingy opened, like in the Marvel movies, you know? Doctor Strange? Only this one didn't have that golden sparkly ring. It's more black or a really dark purple. Anyway, my brother just drove through it. He said that's where the scroll thing needs us to go. Hey, we didn't get killed, so that's a plus. Scroll? Alan gestured at his brother to speak less. The system, he said simply. Ah. Well, welcome to North Cedar Lake, gents. Make yourselves at home, I said, ignoring the questions about the system swarming in my head. Scrolls, huh? What can they do? Demon asked. Although I can already guess, she trailed off. Alan raised his eyebrow at me as if he was asking for permission. I smiled. Go ahead. Luke cracked his knuckles, preparing himself. Unlike his brothers, he was the one who was most excited. Suddenly, their backs arched violently, and the muscles in their chests and arms swelled, tearing through the fabric of their shirts. Flesh stretched to its limits, each inch of their skin pulling painfully tight as if something bestial inside was trying to escape. A deep, primal snarl began to rise, gnawing at the insides as their mouths foamed with saliva. Their breaths became more ragged, and they buckled over, pressed their palms to the earth, fingers digging into the dirt, desperately trying to keep themselves balanced as their eyes changed into the bright golden hue of an animal. Black mangly hairs grew all over their bodies, muscle and bone lengthening, making them taller, more robust, bigger, stronger. Hungrier. Their fingernails were knocked off by sharp claws. Their clothes now lay in tatters on the ground. Facial bones cracked, snapped, and then rearranged, making way for the snout and rows of sharp teeth. Oh, grandmother, what sharp teeth you have. The others slowly backed away from the monstrosities that now towered before them. Huffing. Puffing. The big bad. Werewolves? Demon took a curious step toward them. Yep, I said. Werewolves. The werewolf. Dread score, 5 out of 10. Creature type, monstrosity. Cooldown, 1 week. Special traits. Lycanthropy I. The monster is selected race, human, and can turn into a vicious and violent anthropomorphic wolf hybrid at night, a werewolf. This includes the classic traits, enhanced senses, improved strength, stamina, speed, keen vision, unnatural size, and regenerative healing. Their bite has the ability to turn a mortal into a werewolf by the next full moon. As lycans, they gain the speech trait, available for purchase. Weakness, vulnerable to silver, weaker human form, infectious creature. Pack tactics I. These monsters hunt in a maximum pack of 3. Their hunting tactics and intelligence increase when in proximity with the others, increasing dread and rapidly lowering a delver's resolve when faced with two or more monsters at once. When hunting in a pack, their endurance and regenerative properties increase. Berserker, lycanthrope, I. This monster can enter into an extreme form of lycan bloodlust, further enhancing their strength, fortitude, speed, and lethality. They gain an insatiable taste for killing prey at all costs, reducing the chances of leak and infection. Higher likelihood of leaving no delvers alive during a single encounter. Delver's survival rate drops to 2% when stacked with pack tactics. Duration, 5 minutes, cooldown, 1 hour. Speech I. This monster has lycanthropy. They can speak naturally in the dungeon's native language, American English. Alan let out a deep, guttural howl that rattled the night, and the others joined him in his wolf song. Their resonance burrowed deep into the bone, and you couldn't help but wonder if this was what death sounded like before the big bite, before you say bye-bye to the great beyond. It was almost comforting, yet frightening to listen to, their backs arched, snouts pointed to the sky, teeth glinting sharp and murderous. I admired their ferocious, primal beauty. Out here in these woods, they were in their natural habitat. And I have a pack of them. Once Alan finished his song, the others did, too. As my domain continued to expand, old growth couldn't protect the border alone. The Sawyers would be those guys. Normal humans during the day and primal hunters at night. I planned to create a gas station and a large ranch in the new area I expanded into close to the highway. That empty stretch would fit perfectly as the Sawyers' lair. I might even name the ranch, Sawyers Ranch, owned by an old rural family with roots tied to these lands since the early 1900s. I asked Oracle to draft and manipulate the estate deed and then snuck it into City Hall's computers in Point Hope and at the state capital, Salem. The state of Oregon officially recognized their lands with just a punch of a few buttons on the keyboard. With their presence inside my domain, everyone in the surrounding area was vaguely aware of the Sawyer family's history of these woods. They've lived here for as long as I can remember, some would say. They mainly kept to themselves. Very good boys, others who were polite, chimed in. Fucking hillbillies owes me money. They should leave, a handful would spat. Little fake memories courtesy of the system. Once I finished writing the rumors for all my archetypes, those memories would solidify into a life of its own. But I wasn't done yet. I expected another guest. The 7th archetype. Lucky number 7. The fog arrived slowly, encroaching through the woods in a wall of white barely taller than Goliath's hips. But I felt his presence within the fog, within the dark woods itself. Although each archetype arrived in my domain by different means, Goliath crawled out of the ground, demon materialized into thin air, and old growth splintered off a tree, among others. This was a familiar entrance. The archetype's presence blinked into existence deep in the woods not far from us, surrounded by the shadows, which welcomed him. I invited him to come forward, and he followed, cautious but excited. And yet, I could not hear a heartbeat. I summon you, Duke, I said. A man stepped forward, his polished $2,000 shoes making soft but deliberate steps. He didn't care that his expensive shoes were caked with mud. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, the kind that was tailored just for him, sleek, dark, and effortlessly elegant. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his clothes with a natural ease, and his posture was impeccable, exuding confidence without the slightest hint of arrogance. Dark hair, neatly styled, framed his sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and warm light blue eye. There was something magnetic about him. True to its purpose, I thought. I designed him that way. His gaze was transfixed to me like the Sawyers were a few minutes ago. And was that a flicker of fear in his eyes? Awe? Enthrallment? He bowed like all archetypes were accustomed to. No, not just archetypes, but even the administrators. Oh shit, I'm probably gonna have to get used to this. He straightened his back. I am at your service, my Lord Dungeon, he said. He sounded posh, the Queen's English maybe, but with a deep and commanding voice like rolling thunder. I smell death, Demo sniffed the air. No, undeath. Let me guess, disgustingly handsome? Check. Pale as a ghost? Check. No heartbeat? Check. Centuries of aristocratic arrogance? Check. Craves blood? Check. Are you a vampire, sir? Duke blinked, and his irises instantly turned blood red. He parted his mouth slightly open, and fangs protruded out of it. The Duke. Dread score, 7 out of 10. Creature type, undead. Cooldown, 1 week. Special traits. Strict vampirism I. The monster becomes an immortal vampiric entity that does not age. The monster can turn immortal if the creature feeds on its blood 3 times and drinks its blood twice. This decreases the chances of a vampiric plague. As a vampire, they have increased strength, agility, and a faster healing factor. Strength: the monster can sire 1/1 loyal vampire spawn and 1/1 familiar at the cost of 1 essence each. Weakness: sunlight, vulnerable to UV rays, stake to the chest. Bat morphology: eye. The monster can fly. It can levitate in its humanoid form or grow bat-like wings to increase its flying speed and trigger dread effects. It can also fully transform into a large bat twice the size of a grown, human, man with sharp talons and teeth. While flying, it can also carry 1/1 large creature or 2/2 medium-sized humanoid creatures. Cunning predator: eye. The monster has 6 skill expertise of your choosing: speech, charisma, culture, human, occultism, alchemy, stealth, and athletics. Speech: eye. You have selected a speech skill from Cunning Predator. This is a free trait and will automatically occupy the monster's 4th trait slot. It cannot be replaced unless the skill is replaced first. The monster can speak naturally in the dungeon's native language, American English. The monster has an improved culture rating. Select 7 languages of your choice: Spanish, Mandarin, Arabic, Hindi, French, German, and Russian. The monster has an improved occult rating. Select 6 ancient languages of your choice: Egyptian, Ancient Greek, Latin, Aramaic, Old Norse, and Sanskrit. I am, my lady, Duke answered. Oh, I'm no lady, pretty man, Demon said, mocking an offense. This body is mine. Keep out of it. Ah, I see, Duke sighed. Fiend, I presume? You presumed right. Demon gave him an elaborate, playful bow. At your pleasure. Duke also lowered his head to a polite bow to the demon. Demon gave me an amused look. Vampires and werewolves. You can't go wrong with the classics. Who are you? I asked. Where'd you come from? I lived in London with 2 other flatmates who refused to wash the dishes and didn't know how to cook to save their lives. I was called Henry Richards in my past life, Duke said. You call me the Duke now. So, that is my name. Do you prefer something else? Duke thought about it momentarily as if thinking, or perhaps, looking at his new stat block. You created me to be a vampire, right? Then, I shall play the part. I will play it with ease. I will go by the name of Duke Henry Louis Duncan. Duncan is my grandmother's maiden name. Was her maiden name. If you allow me such a connection to my past life, I will be eternally grateful. She was the only one who was kind to me. Compared to Goliath, Duke was a little more eager to relish in his old self. And like the Sawyers, the system picked another archetype from Earth. Interesting. I'll allow it. Thank you, my lord. He glanced at something beside him, the stat sheet only he was privy to. Ancient languages? Am I to play an ancient vampire then? You can. Maybe at least 3,000 years old? Can you manage that? Write my rumor, and I'll experience it firsthand. I tilted my head. I didn't realize my archetypes would also be affected by the backstories. Same with the mortals. I see. I'll start drafting everyone's rumors once the cops are finished with the fake crime scene. Oh, and I'm also open to everyone's suggestions about their rumors, okay? Everyone nodded. Duke Henry looked around the cabin. Where will I stay? A new area opened up by the northwest side, close to the mountains. It's just across the lake. I will build you a neo-Gothic mansion on top of a cliff. Will that work as your lair? It makes sense for an ancient vampire. I shall play the part of an aristocrat millionaire, and I will be right at home, he said. Demon's eyebrows arched. A mansion? Fancy boy. We plebs will stick to the woods then. We'll brainstorm your backstory tomorrow, I said. You know, the night is still young. How about we go to Wizard Island and enjoy the rest of the night, eh? They all cheered when they realized I was serious about throwing them a celebratory party, and we slowly made our way to the island. Wizard Island was the small lump of rock in the middle of North Cedar Lake. Back in the 60s, during the Summer of Love, some old hermit used to live out here, and everyone just called him the Wizard because of his white hair and beard. On the north side was a dilapidated shack that had been vandalized for years since the hermit either moved or passed away. The island was barely 1,000 feet long and relatively narrow, with surprisingly dense trees and a rocky shore, but this massive cliff at the west side, facing the cabin, dropped 30 feet. It was a popular hangout for teenagers and other visitors of the lake, who swam or rowed to the island to be able to jump off this cliff. I did once upon a time, and it was a lot of fun. It was one of Point Hope's summertime pastimes. There was even a rickety dock that desperately needed repairs. Fortunately, the island was barely inside my borders. With a few cheap crystals, I conjured a table with several platters of food for the archetypes that needed to eat. However, there were more meats on the table than vegetables or fruits. The Sawyers transformed back to their human selves, and after searching for new clothes and evading the siren's soft giggles, they dressed up and started grilling hot dogs, burgers, and buns. Good old American food, Alan said jokingly. The sirens also maintained their humanoid forms and started nibbling on what, to them, was strange food. But they enjoyed it in the end, especially the burgers with the caramelized charred meats. An hour before anyone was on the island, Goliath killed a deer in the woods, dragged it to the island, skinned it, cut the meat up, and cooked the venison himself. The Sawyers were more than impressed, and I was glad that was a bonding moment between them. At least they're getting along. At the corner of the table was a punch bowl filled with blood for Demon or Duke Henry to consume. Henry politely sipped on a wine glass filled with O-negative blood. Demon grabbed one of the deer's legs, used her mutated flesh abilities, and made a sock puppet show for Duke Henry and the Sawyers about how she became the possessing demon and how the dungeon lord dispatched the cult. Eventually, the conversations devolved into what happened in the previous 3 delves. Demon was curious about which ones were their favorites. Since Goliath was front and center during Leo's delve, that was his favorite hunt. Old Growth couldn't pick a favorite since, as Demon translated, he was more interested in the chase than the kills. It made him happy when the delvers ran away from him instead of standing up to fight. I realized confrontations were never Oldie's jam. He was a runner's junkie. But he was very good at them. A natural at killing, I thought. We also watched Penelope and the other sirens perform several songs for us, and I caught Demon smiling at that, even though she claimed to hate music or musicals. Calypso had a lovely, vibrant voice, and Penelope encouraged her to sing a solo. By midnight, Naynite Oracle, Goliath, and Luke Sawyer had devolved into a knife-throwing contest with Old Growth as the judge. Duke Henry, the sirens, and the rest of the Sawyers were the audience. Oracle and Goliath were neck and neck. There was a time when these monsters only existed in the movies and TV shows I grew up watching. Stories that I had read over and over. Now, I walked among them, drawn into existence by my own imagination. A penny for your thoughts? Demon asked. I hadn't noticed her break off from the crew and stood alone with me. I stared at her for a long moment and realized that the mind reading didn't work on my archetypes. Only for mortals, then. Demon smiled as if she could sense me poking around in there but said nothing. Tired of the new arrivals? I am not much of a people person, Demon said. For a fiend, that's surprising. Mortals are easier to talk to. Would you believe me if I said that the other demons think I am antisocial? That they sometimes make fun of me? You were bullied in hell? It's hell, my lord. Bullies exist there. Fuck them, then. You're here now enjoying fresh air, and I don't know what they do down there. Licking bum? Demon cackled. Do not worry, my lord. I also bite back. Every demon bullies. It's just a fact of life. You have your sports with kicking balls, and this is ours. Those are entirely different comparisons. Yes, you are correct. Perhaps I should have compared it to our gladiatorial arenas. Anyway, those assholes are busy clamoring for their quotas. Souls, I mean. But I just made up for it in a day. I'm swimming like a king in your realm. Glad to hear that. I wasn't sure what to say, but Demon seemed pleased. Do demons have a family? Demon arched an eyebrow. Not in a human sense. We have clans, although that is not the right word. Bloodlines, yes, that's the word. That is where our loyalty lies. However, I am no longer bound to such archaic things. You have freed me from my boring obligations. Oh? What is your bloodline? I apologize if that is rude to ask. Not at all. Every demon can recognize a bloodline by smell. You can't really hide it. I guess dungeon lords are not accustomed to differentiating such smells. My bloodline comes from the Great Baal himself. Commander of the 66 legions of hell. If you wish to permit it, I may be able to hear whispers about Astaroth's movements. I do have several favors owed to me down there. You'd do that for me? Demon nodded and shrugged. All it requires is a secured portal to hell, and we'll be able to travel there. You, as a deathcore, could provide that. Are you so eager to return? No. I love it here. On this planet, I am free to do as I please. With your supervision, of course. Life is good. Wait a sec. I again opened the menu and looked for the portal Demon mentioned. Finding it only took about 3 minutes, and I almost leaped out of my form. 100,000 crystals? Demon was not surprised. It's a planar portal, my lord. Of course, it will be expensive. Wizards, celestials, and liches had to use more power to open a crack and peer through the other dimensions. Most die in the process, and the end results are not pretty. We don't have to worry about finding those kinds of people here, so Earth is safe. But technically, I'm a shortcut when you think about it, I said. If people don't have the power to achieve what they desire, they delve instead. They delve me. And that is why I tolerate having new blood around here. Makes it feel like a community, I guess. Look at them. All smiling and laughing. A community of killers. Disgusting. Demon cackled. Penelope seems to be enjoying herself. I like seeing her, happy. Gosh, I sound insane. For a fiend, it must be a strange concept. You're right. I've never seen her smile like that before. Thank you for watching out for us. Why? Don't other dungeons care for their monsters? I heard rumors, Demon said. Not many of them consider us as an extension of themselves. More expendable. Discarded if proven useless. Oh, that's sad. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know if it was true. Elvis hinted that there were dungeons on Earth, but they hadn't contacted me yet. It's only been a week. In a year or two? Who knows? What kinds of things did they build in their domain? Did they have monsters like me? Dark skies above us, Demon pointed out. I think it's going to rain soon. I looked around and everyone was still having fun. The night was still young, and they still had enough energy left in the tank. On a night like this? No, I think not. I looked at the rolling rain clouds, and in a second they parted open as if a massive rock hurtled through the air, revealing the stars. Fear struck in the winds, pushing the clouds away from my domain as if it were retreating. Demon smiled. That's more like it. I lost 19 essences upgrading my archetypes and welcoming 2 new ones. I only had 12 left and 24,000 crystals. A very productive night. On Sunday, October 8, 2023, Danny and Tessa woke up. Tessa had no memories of her delves at Green Hill and North Cedar Lake. The police talked to her, of course. She shed some tears for her late boyfriend and widened an already grievous wound. She was of no help to the detectives. She shut down after that, refusing to talk to her parents, friends, or anyone else. The silence between her and those who visited her stretched like a living void. It was at the tip of her tongue, and it ate her inside why she couldn't remember anything. She thought that perhaps this was a good thing, that maybe not remembering was a mercy. Danny's aunt, uncle, and grandparents stayed by his side for 2 weeks. They were overjoyed to see him awake again, although the poor boy didn't understand why his parents were gone. Though his memories were muddled and scattered, he claimed that the pirate man was there when his parents went into the woods. Into the cabin by the lake. From what little clues Danny gave the detectives, they were easy enough to lead them toward North Cedar Lake. They scoured the area for hours and hours. Minutes after dusk on October 9th, 2 police officers found my cabin. And the horror that awaited them inside. Eventually, they made it to my dungeon. I counted at least 90 police officers, firefighters, paramedics, and journalists swarming the forest. First responders were called from at least 3 counties over to one of the largest massacres in state history. I had to stop myself from triggering a delve due to all of these mortals on my backs, and my notification feed was popping up with potential delvers like a rattling machine gun. It was like holding a squat for hours on end, it was torture. I unnerved and horrified several of them by witnessing the fake crime scenes I had manipulated. By design, it should drop their resolve by several degrees lower. At least a dozen people puked their guts out from witnessing such carnage. They found half of the bodies that night, including mine. The next day, they found the rest scattered in the woods. My mother was never a crier. I might have seen her cry maybe 3 times. My father was, though. She liked to jokingly believe that my father carried the emotional winds of the family, but she loved him dearly. When they heard the news that their son, who had been missing for the past couple of months, was dead, well, my mother didn't just cry. She wailed. Wailed like something inside her snapped and let out the floodgates of unabashed pain, anger, and despair. My father could barely speak, and later that night, he barely slept and cried far away from his wife's ears. Their side of the bed had flipped, and he needed to be strong now that she was falling apart. I broke their hearts, and I couldn't tell them I was still alive. I was still here, listening to them whisper under their breaths that this was not real. This was not happening. This was a dream. A horrible dream. One day, I would walk through the front door, fine and healthy. The cops got it wrong. Totally wrong. Come home, Mark. Come home. Please, come home. And then they went down to the morgue, and reality pulled the dark veil off their eyes. I was sorry they had to see my old body that way. But they needed to see what Justin Hodge and his ilk had done to me. They needed to know what they had done to their poor boy. Anger. I needed them to be angry with me and raise hell. By the next day, it was all over the news, an occult massacre in the middle of rural Americana. The media ate it up like a full-fledged chocolate cake and left no crumbs. They blamed Justin Hodge. They blamed all the murders on him and his sect. Several pillars of the community were branded and tarnished by such a heinous crime. No one could resist such a succulent and monstrous story. Point Hope was never the same after that. Fractal omniscience, commencing. Searching. Searching. Found. Claire Castle was never a fan of funerals. She only attended one when she was 15, almost a lifetime ago. Mima Helen, from her father's side, croaked 5 years ago when she had a slight fall on her front porch. She didn't think it was worth the hassle of going to the hospital and paying the exuberant hospital bills. She had a couple of falls long before this one, and it never amounted to much except a stern lecture from her doctor half her age, practically an infant, that it could be serious. To Helen, it was never that serious. Why be pessimistic about your chances of dying when you can start living instead? So, she took some Advil, decided not to go to Weimar as planned, watched a couple of Cheers episodes, and then went to bed. She never woke up again. Her house nurse, who came by twice a week, found her 3 days later buried under thick blankets stinking into high heavens, and her 2 house-trained Jack Russell Terriers were found wandering her property, thankfully alive. The week after, a bunch of old people attended her wake, and Claire hardly knew anyone who came by. She never knew that much about her Mima since Helen lived all the way down in Arizona, and they only visited her once or twice a year, her birthdays on April 3rd and Thanksgiving. Mima Helen loved her birthdays. She tended to always go out and splurge at Sunsplash in Mesa for a weekend of golf or at Wet 'n Wild in Phoenix. Claire's mother, Abby, was more surprised she didn't die in one of the theme parks she frequented like a toddler high in sugar, especially Disneyland. Claire and her cousins always looked forward to her birthdays since the tickets and the fun were free. In a past life, in another world, I might have been a Disney princess hick, Mima Helen claimed with a ruckus laugh after munching on corn dogs, barbecue beans, and, to be honest, a glass of beer and half a pack of cigarettes. She wasn't exactly the epitome of healthy living. Live and let live. Fuck cancer, she would often say. And yes, Mima Helen had beaten cancer twice. With how many cigarettes that woman smoked, Claire was surprised it was skin cancer of all things that tried to kill her and not her blackened lungs. And the stairs, of course, she thought. So, when Helen Alberta Castle died at the age of 73, leaving 4, still alive, children, the funeral wasn't sad, or gloomy, or anything like that. No. There were loads of old people, as Claire mentioned. At 73, Helen would have known plenty of septuagenarians, and she wasn't exactly shy at making new friends outside her generation, young and old. Sometimes, Claire envied such an almost superhuman skill. Hundreds of people who knew her gathered in Mima's nicely decorated backyard, and within the next 2 days, people came over not to mourn but to celebrate her life. It was a nice, respectful way to honor her, a community gathering to cherish one person's memory. But it was barely tolerable at 15 when there were hardly any kids her age except her brother and other cousins. Claire was also insufferable during those whirlwind couple of years. Always rebellious. Always wanted to be independent. Always the contrarian to what her mom and dad wanted her to do, and she went an extra mile to do the opposite. Stick it to the man. She got the teen angst bug most high school girls succumb to with no way to dig herself out of it until, miraculously, a tunnel opened in the middle of senior year when Erica Sadowski, another girl in her English class, lost her mom from a terrible tragedy, and Claire got herself out of such funk. Anyway, she cringed every time the memory came up. But Mark Castle's funeral? No, that was different. It was just plain fucking depressing. Unlike Mima Helen, Claire has known Mark since he was a baby. He was only 3 years younger than her, and together with her younger brother Charlie, who was a year older than Mark, they pretty much hung out all the time when they were kids. Mark was an only child, so in the time they spent together, he was like her second brother, the youngest. She and Charlie only lived 5 streets down from Aunt Vivian and Uncle Brandon's house. A short bike ride to movie nights, video games, D&D, basketball on the driveway, and anything that could pass the time, really. She grew up in Point Hope all her life with Charlie and Mark and half a dozen other cousins from around Lynn County. Sometimes, she missed those days, the innocence of youth. And I am attending his funeral, she thought wistfully. 18 years old. Dead before graduating high school. Decades still left of his future that she would never know. Going and graduating from college. Finding a partner. Getting a dog or a cat. Buying a house. Having a job. Having a family. Growing old. What a shitty world this has turned into. At 8 in the morning, her plane landed at PDX 15 minutes late, which she didn't mind. Half the flight was watching movies, and the second half was praying it wouldn't crash when they encountered the worst turbulence she had experienced during their approach above the Cascades. She heard about that plane that exploded above the Columbia River and killed everyone on board. Though the authorities were still investigating it, the evidence they had gathered so far pointed away from what was initially believed to be terrorism. Just a freak accident. Life giveth and taketh away. Claire hated that happenstance could kill her. She would at least like to know how and why she was dying. On that last stretch of her flight, she was sweating bullets. She didn't carry much with her. A carry-on bag with at least 3 days of clothes, and her laptop carrier just in case she needed to finish up with some homework. She would have come home sooner if Aunt Vivian and her mother hadn't insisted she stayed in New York so that she could focus on her crazy midterms while the rest of her family went looking for Mark with half of Point Hope in tow. He was only reported missing at the time. She would have helped. She would like to help. But Claire was a broke college student living with 4 other roommates in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and she couldn't possibly afford a plane ticket back to Oregon without her parents helping her while also paying her share of the rent, which was due. She kept tabs on Mark's search through Zoom and FaceTime with Charlie, but she knew that was not enough. Even when she was doing her assignments and attending the lectures, it was unfair that she was living her life while Mark could be in danger. When the week turned to another, then another, well, Claire thought of the worst. And it came true. Claire followed the news like a hawk when the bodies were discovered. Though she only read 3 articles detailing what the police believed had happened, those were enough information for her, and she never delved deep into the nitty-gritty details. Reading those articles made her want to take a very long shower. People in the media and on the internet started to call it the Point Hope Massacre. People on TikTok tagged it as the butchering. An ugly, disgusting name. In the past 6 weeks alone, they already renamed McLaren Forest and the surrounding lake as the Murder Forest or Devil Mountain. Not officially, but a sick, insulting nickname. They had the gall to laugh, chuckle at the macabre disassociation of the case, seeing the entire thing from an outside perspective, knowing it wouldn't affect you but to gain tons of views, and also monetize the shit out of it. Stupid. I am surrounded by stupid people, and they are populating, Claire thought. The age of short attention spans and 15 minutes of fame. My generation is doomed. Because it was a police investigation, they had to keep Mark Castle's body for at least 6 weeks in the morgue until he was released to the family. Aunt Vivian and Uncle Brandon insisted on an open casket, but last Claire heard, her mother convinced them otherwise and succeeded. From what little she knew, it was probably for the best. She didn't know what she would do if she saw Mark lying on the coffin, sporting the scrapes, cuts, and gashes those evil bastards brought upon him. I should have done more, she thought. But it was too late now. Heat flushed on her cheeks, and she was angry again, like when she first heard about it. anger, helplessness, and pain. When her father told her some of the worst news of her life, she didn't cry. Not at first. More numbed and bewildered. It was hard to imagine the end of mortality for someone who was barely 21 years old. At this age, she still took life as a suggestion, and the consequences were far out of reach. By the time she went to bed, though, Claire had cried herself to sleep. Mark Castle. Dead at 18. Murdered. Claire shook her head. No. Butchered. Poor Marky. Claire waited another 15 minutes at the baggage claim area. Thank God there was a Starbucks nearby. She hated red-eye flights but had no choice but to take this one. It was the cheapest and earliest flight to Portland. A boost of caffeine was all she needed. After sipping on a hot grande cup of gingerbread latte, she received a text from Charlie that he was by the arrivals gates near the pickup lane and to hurry the EFF up. Even at this early hour, the airport was already swarming with people, fleeting like ants, hoping to leave and be back in their own beds like Claire was. The pickup lane was busy when she got out through the sliding doors. 3 columns of vehicles squeezed into 3 lanes, hoping to pick up their loved ones waiting by the sidewalk. Only the designated taxi and Uber/Lyft areas had ample space to move. She instantly recognized Charlie's new gray Ford Explorer, which he posted on Instagram, wedged between a Toyota and a Tesla, duking it out to whoever could reach the sidewalk first. Charlie won, of course, since his car was much bigger, and the annoying honking from the Tesla owner only grated her brother's nerves. Charlie threw his arms out when he climbed out of the car, showing his annoyance at why the Tesla driver couldn't be more patient for at least a minute while he helped Claire put her bags into the back seat. The big OL, come on, dude. Are you freaking serious? Look, he sported, possibly making the Tesla driver more annoyed with his constant honking. As if that would speed up the process. How are you doing, sis? Long time no see, Charlie said and hugged Claire. You, too. Thanks for picking me up, Claire said. Bah, no problem. You can't Uber for 2 hours to Point Hope. That'd be crazy expensive. But I also want to show off the car I just bought. You like it? It's really nice, Charlie, Claire said. This isn't from Dad's allowance, right? Nope. Bought it 6 months ago with my own paychecks. Plural. Look at you joining the adulting club. Mark helped me pick it. Charlie frowned, and the silence enveloped them, broken only by the Tesla driver honking again behind them. A brief, spurring honk that said, I'm still waiting here. Yeah. Fuck off. We have a funeral to go to, Charlie said under his breath. Wait, is that all your bags? Yep. I didn't bring much. Just the necessities. I still have clothes back at the house, so I'll just wear those. Are you sure they're still gonna fit? Charlie looked her up and down with disgust. Freshman 15. Claire couldn't help but chortle. Fuck you, too, prick. And I'm already a junior, Charleston. Charlie's nose wrinkled. He hated being called by his full name. You know what, let's get into the car before that asshole in the Tesla rams us or something. He paused with that amused smile and added, well, I hope he does. Insurance money will really come in handy to pay this car off. Let's not give Mom and Dad a heart attack, okay? Charleston? Hey. Quit it. I concede. But Charlie couldn't help but smile. The drive to Point Hope was boring, just as she remembered it. Trees, and more trees. Also, the rain. She shouldn't forget that part. And also the occasional dips, ups, and downs as they traveled along the Cascades. And last, the snow-capped peaks of the mountains in the distance, towering like postcards outside the window. Ah, it's good to be home, she sighed. As they reached Lynn County, Claire realized Charlie had taken the longer route to Point Hope by going through the northern pass, heading to McLaren Forest and North Cedar Lake. Charlie must have sensed her alarm, and he smiled reassuringly and patted her arm. It's okay, sis. It's a slight detour. I just have something I want to show you. What is it? It's for Mark. But why are we going to? It's okay, Claire. Trust me, okay? Do you trust me? Of course, she trusted him. Always. Charlie was really good at calming people down. Claire liked to imagine he inherited Mima Helen's superpowers of being super chill all the time and making the people around them love them. That's what Claire hated about him. She inherited the opposite side of the coin, being an anxious, nervous, burnt-out mess. Charlie decided not to go to college and instead went into an internship in town to become an electrician without making both their parents throw a fit. Now, that's a superpower, too. It's been 2 years since, and he seemed happy. They drove for another 10 minutes until they reached the exit ramp towards Cedar Pine Summer Camp. Then, they drove another 10 minutes along twisting roads hugging the foot of Mount Selene, where the dimly lit woods seemed to lean into the narrow slice of asphalt, trying to swallow it. Charlie parked on the side of the road in front of a Toyota Camry, where a woman sat cross-legged on the hood of the car. She gulped down the last bits of her purple vitamin water and jumped off the hood just as Charlie climbed out of the vehicle. The woman leaped into his arms and gave him a chaste kiss. It took Claire a second to recognize her, and her jaw dropped. Erica Sadowski? My brother is dating her? If the ending version of Nice Regina George from Mean Girls existed, it would be in the form of Erica Sadowski. She played softball, was prom queen twice in a row, both her parents were professors at the local college, and was popular all throughout high school. Erica was only a grade lower than Claire, but everyone knew Erica. During Claire's senior year, Erica became known as the girl with the dead mom, but that didn't even dent her popularity in school. Claire couldn't help but be proud of her for taking such an ugly moniker in stride. To be fair, a handful of kids in school lost a family member or a parent once in a while, but Erica's mom was known across Point Hope as that professor who snapped, went crazy, and hanged herself at the college's bell tower. The only good thing that came out of the aftermath was that Erica and her dad didn't also go insane from the trauma and the scrutiny of everyone in town. But still. I can't believe she's dating my brother, Claire thought. It had been 2 years since she last saw Charlie, and he had filled his clothes quite well now that he had more time to go to the gym, and a lot of growing to do after high school. But Claire still saw him as her baby brother who loved to play video games rather than meet girls. Since when did he find the confidence? That little twerp. Claire tried to hide her grin as she stepped out and hugged Erica. So, you and my brother, huh? Claire smacked Charlie on the shoulder. Since when are you planning on telling me? Charlie scratched the back of his head. Well, I was gonna, but it's still too early, you know? Erica laughed. He only asked me out before summer started. And he waited a month before finally asking to make things official. To be fair, I didn't know if you liked me that much, Charlie said, red flushing his cheeks. That's still up in the air, Erica teased. Sorry. My brother is a bit slow in that department, Claire joked. Hey. Not nice, Charlie said. Oh. Did you get what I asked for, babe? Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me grab it from the back. Erica returned to her car and grabbed a bouquet of white roses and calla lilies. She handed it to Charlie. Charlie led Claire and Erica toward the street corner just a few steps behind Erica's car, where the asphalt turned into gravel, plunging into the depths of McLaren Forest. 40 feet in was a wooden gate arm with a placard nailed into the wood that read, Private Property. No trespassing, in faded letters with the drawn silhouette of a hunting rifle in the background. Claire's body went cold and rigid when she realized this gravel road would ultimately lead to the Fairley cabin she had only read on the news. Before she could tear into Charlie for bringing her to the place where Mark had died, Charlie showed her a shrine by the side of the gravel road. A wooden cross surrounded by flowers, nicely decorated vases, toys, and other mementos that Claire recognized Mark used to own in the past. A picture of Mark smiling happily while wearing that ugly sweater of a fat reindeer his mother bought for him during the Christmas party a year ago was at the center. Beside Mark's framed photograph was a placard that read, Mark Castle, loving son and light of our lives. Claire burst into tears. It overpowered her like a hurricane, and she couldn't hold it any longer. Ever since she embarked on this long pilgrimage to attend her cousin's funeral, she promised herself not to cry. She shed too many tears already. But this? It came roaring back to the surface and breaking her into pieces again. Charlie and Erica hugged her for a long while, she needed it. Erica broke off the hug and ran back to the car again, grabbed a six-pack from the cooler in her trunk, and handed Charlie and Claire a can of cold beer. Claire didn't question how Erica managed to buy alcohol when she was still 20. Charlie explained that he was the one who suggested that Aunt Vivian and Uncle Brandon create this shrine in McLaren Forest, and they agreed. They'd only been here 3 times since Charlie and some of his friends erected it, but Charlie came by weekly to replace the flowers and added more tokens around the cross. For Aunt Vivian and Uncle Brandon, the forest was too much of a reminder of what happened to their son, but they still tried to visit when it didn't hurt too much to remember. They spent more than an hour drinking and reminiscing about their memories with Mark. Their laughter echoed across the woods, where only the animals and the trees could hear. No cars passed them by to interrupt them. No cars ever would. This stretch of road led to a dead end, and only the Sawyer Ranch, the closed-down summer camp, and the abandoned asylum were waiting for them. Charlie quickly updated Claire that some British millionaire with ties to royalty bought the latter and turned it into a giant mansion. A giant haunted mansion, most likely, Claire added. Oh, shit. Before I forget. Charlie pulled something out of his jacket, a DVD case of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I know Halloween was like last week, but you might appreciate this, bro. Charlie placed the DVD case on Mark's shrine. Enjoy it wherever you are. Erica pulled out another DVD case. Claire recognized the cover for Let the Right One In. The Swedish original, not the derivative remake. And the first horror movie you showed me. I hope we get to watch it again someday. Damn. Now I feel left out, Claire said. If you would have told me we were doing this, I would have bought something from the airport. That's why I got you this. Charlie handed her a DVD case for Friday the 13th, they're cheap and in the bin forever at Walmart. Claire smiled and grabbed the DVD. She shuffled toward the shrine and placed the case next to the others. Happy Halloween, cuz, she said. I wonder who you'd dress up as this time if you were here. Probably the Babadook, Charlie chimed in, and Erica laughed. Claire chuckled. He was thinking of dressing up as the Babadook one time. Hey, Mom and Dad are probably waiting. They're expecting us an hour ago, Charlie said. Claire nodded. Mark's burial was tomorrow, and she needed all the energy she could get before that. No doubt there would be a lot of crying happening, and she wanted to be prepared. When they returned to where they parked their cars, another vehicle, an old, beaten-up Ford truck, sat waiting on the road. Garth Sawyer sat behind the wheel, Luke stood by the truck bed, and the oldest of the Sawyer brothers leaned against the truck's hood, watching them walk out of the gravel road. Oh, hey, Alan. We're just leaving, Charlie greeted nervously. Alan glanced at the sky and took 2 steps forward. I told you not to dally around here before dark, Castle. Don't you know these woods aren't safe? The sheriff wants me to kick any trespassers out. Did I ever tell you that? How can I forget? You remind me every time I come here, Charlie said under his breath. But Alan Sawyer heard him clear as day. And for good reason, kid. You're running a little later than usual, Alan said. You know, Alan, it's not illegal to come here after dark, Charlie said. You don't want to be here after dark, Alan said sternly. As I said, the sheriff doesn't like people getting caught in the dark out here. Do you want me to report you to the police? These woods don't take kindly to strangers, Luke said from the truck bed with a grin. Especially after what happened to your cousin. Charlie's eyes flared. What the fuck did you just say? Hey. We're leaving, okay? We're leaving. I apologize for my brother's outburst, sir, Claire said, pushing Charlie back from lunging at Luke. Meanwhile, Luke just laughed it off. Jesus Christ, Charlie. Get a hold of yourself. Listen to your sis, bro, pretty little thing has a lot more common sense than you, Luke said and actually held at them and laughed. Claire whirled around and threw Luke the middle finger, dragging Charlie back toward his truck. She wondered why the Sawyer brothers were this way, but her memories came up empty. They weren't like this before, right? No, she didn't have a run-in with them in the past, but the Sawyer family have lived on this land for, how long, exactly? A century? That explains why they think they own the entire freaking mountain. Real mature, Luke. Real fucking mature, Erica said and rolled her eyes. Luke just waved him off, but Alan glared at him to stop, and the boy quickly shrank back into his shell like a scolded puppy. Erica followed Claire and Charlie to the truck, giving her boyfriend a peck on the cheek before she marched to her own car and climbed behind the wheel. They're jerks, Charlie whispered with venom once he was behind the wheel. Claire nodded. Let's just get out of here, she said. A thought occurred to her. Didn't Luke go to our high school? My year? Am I remembering that right? Charlie looked at her as if she had grown another head. Well, yeah. He was an asshole then. Still an asshole now. Half of the school hated and was scared of him. The only saving grace was that he made us win state 3 years in a row. He paused. You told me he was bad news. Right. Did I? Claire tried to rack her brain for a memory of Luke Sawyer, but everything inside was a jumbled mess. She thought they attended biology together. It was around the time Alan Sr. passed away, and the Sawyer brothers inherited the entire ranch and property. Not only an asshole but a rich asshole. Claire almost jumped out of her seat when she realized Alan Sawyer was standing by her window. He gestured for Charlie to lower it down so he could speak. Charlie hesitated for a moment, but he eventually did as asked. Once the window was down, Alan propped his elbows on the dash and leaned close enough that she could smell the deep, earthy scent that clung to him like sweat, of cedar and leather, and the crisp aroma after spending hours under the sun. He was about to say something when Alan turned toward the forest as if he heard something in the gloom. He gave a slight nod to the empty air as if receiving a silent command. The gesture caused goosebumps to crawl up Claire's spine. Something about it didn't sit right with her. Never go in threes, Alan said firmly. What? Charlie asked. Alan clenched his jaw. Never enter the woods in threes, he said. There were 3 of you. Never do that again. Why not 3? Claire asked. Alan looked at her, his eyes softening. Or else the mountain won't let you leave. Claire turned to his brother and forced a nervous laugh. The sound felt wrong in her throat. I didn't know the Sawyers were a superstitious lot. We'll keep that in mind, Alan. Charlie chuckled alongside her. But there's 3 of you, too, he said, pointing at Garth and Luke. Alan's expression was unreadable. The mountain won't hurt us, Sawyers, he said. And it never will. You okay, boss? Luke asked me. I could no longer feel Claire and Charlie's presence as they exited my domain's periphery. That was a close call, I said. Luke shrugged. We got them out of here in time, he said reassuringly. I did not feed for 6 weeks. This would be the longest I had gone without feeding on essence, and it was maddening. I tried to hold on as much as possible but didn't know how long I could last. The need to feed was getting stronger every day once I hit past day 30. Now, essence, scenarios, and delvers were all I could think about and filled every inch of my waking mind. Charlie was lucky that he came alone or only with Erica when he visited my shrine twice a week. That was nice of him but also dangerous. What if he brought another friend? That would make them 3, and a scenario might get triggered. I really need to feed soon, I paused, hesitating. No, it needs to be tonight. There were plenty of cops and aspiring journalists walking into the woods, hoping to catch a glimpse of my cabin. Some curious hikers, too. But I kept rejecting the urge to feed. It felt like it was too soon after a massacre. Sometimes, I just didn't want to feed on them once. Fractal omniscience was active, and I got to know my food. I lost my appetite. Okay, that last part was a lie. It was always there, but it kept my hunger at bay, enough to watch the potential delvers walk out of my domain without triggering a scenario. I was proud of that. Proud that I could resist my temptations. But this time I couldn't hold it any longer. 6 weeks. I can only hold it for 6 weeks. Can I make it to 7? 8? 3 months? See if my endurance is that strong. No. It has to be tonight. Tonight. My thoughts lingered on my parents, receiving several guests offering condolences at my home. My casket was not far from where they stood. They didn't install home security cameras around the house, so I could only glimpse them from several people's phones and listen to their conversations. I watched as Charlie and Claire arrived, saw Aunt Abby and Uncle Carrie scolded them for being late, and then joined my other cousins, who had arrived a day ago, in the backyard. They'll bury my body tomorrow, I thought glumly. And they'll grieve me forever. It was hard not to be there at my former home and touch everyone's presence. With my growing hunger and a deathcore's unpredictability, I didn't think moving my core into town would be a good idea, even when I wanted to be closer to my family. It wouldn't be safe. All I could do was watch them grieve me. But that grief of theirs would heal over time. It would not be easy, and it would hurt, and there would be plenty of bumps on the road, but it would heal, nonetheless. The scars it would leave behind would be a memory of me. At least there was some comfort to that. My stomach growled, and the earth rumbled beneath me. I took a deep breath. Just another week. Let me last another week and make it after the funeral. And then I'll feed again.